Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Jank Tank, episode number 59. My name is Timothy Zaccanino. I'll be hosting for you today, and I've got with me on the line for this cube review, Teld. You saw his face last time, and Christopher Sofsky, creator of the Jank Tank, is on camera for the first time. I don't,
Mm.
Teld, where is Chris on your screen? Like, where is he going to show up?
He's directly above me.
Above you.
Looking
Okay,
like
so he's
Shane
somewhere
Gillis.
over there.
Looking like Shane. I look like Shane Gillis. That's not good. I don't want to look like Shane Gillis.
I don't know who that is, but apparently Chris looks like him.
He's a fat comedian.
Teld, can you throw up an image of Shane Gillis in post here?
Yeah, we'll do it in post.
All right, yeah, we'll do it live, or not live. Yeah, okay, so we were talking Lorwyn Eclipse. We already did the peasant review. That's where you saw Danelius's face. We got some really good feedback about the camera setup here. We're going to workshop that a little bit. I know the biggest piece of feedback we got from most people is to have the card image be larger and, preferably the faces smaller, which I took as you don't want to see our faces. But we're going to try and figure out a better way to do that. But, it's been a week, so we're workshopping it a little bit. I'm totally open to suggestions from people if they have an idea of how to actually get the, card image centered without a bunch of post editing work for Teld or myself or anybody like that.
Yeah,
so
because to put it in perspective, we are currently just in a Discord call together, and they turns out give you limited options for what you can do with the Discord call.
Yeah, we're not we haven't looked into paid programming for this or anything like that. So any sort of suggestions out there on, especially if you have a podcast and you do this sort of recording, what do you use? What works for you? What do you know is a common program or something to record something like this? Let us know, because we're kind of going in dark and just kind of doing preliminary stuff to make sure we've got some sort of setup. It's probably not ideal, but we'll work on it. That's all to say, we'll work on it. But anyway, Lorwyn Eclipse. We are here to talk about Lorwyn Eclipse from a high power level point of view. We talked about it from Peasant. We're going to talk about it for basically our mainline Jank Diver Gaming Cube, and we're going to do this ins and outs style, which we did with Avatar: The Last Airbender, where we will be talking about the cards that we are actually going to play from Lorwyn Eclipse and the cards in our mainline Jank Diver Gaming Cube that we've cut to make room for those. And then we'll have a little section at the end where we can talk about some of the kind of outsiders looking in that didn't make the list but are still worth mentioning. So that's going to be the name of the game.
I think this is a cool, there was some positive response to this, so I think it's an interesting thing. The dev diaries that we did a couple of times always got some good feedback, and this kind of, I guess, sort of lets us combine a bit of review with a bit of dev diary type stuff to let you kind of get our thoughts on why we're making some of these changes.
Yeah, my favorite part of recording like this is that I can see when Chris just kind of walks away. It's and we can watch whatever he's watching in the background on TV. What's he got?
A Monster Energy drink number 2.
Oh,
Monster
number 2.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So the first one just had no effect. I just was not very effective.
No, the first one's kind of like you have to prime. When you start a lawnmower, you gotta prime it just to even get it started. That's energy drink number 1. Energy drink.
Chris the lawnmower Sofsky.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, I think I've told you this before. My dad was into he did landscaping for a living, and he would jam 2 NOS, whatever NOS is, it's some energy. He would jam 2 of those every morning before he got started on his first job, and then he would work 9 hours and come home and jam another NOS.
I always assumed that was just antifreeze loaded with caffeine.
I think that's actually their
caffeine addiction. That's some serious caffeine dependency right there.
Dad, can't you just drink coffee like a normal adult? But I don't
know.
No,
dude. I used to I managed coffee shops, independent coffee shops, for a number of years before I got my start in white collar work, and drank shitloads of coffee. You'd think I'd be a big coffee head, but I just don't drink it anymore. Weirdly, you could probably dissolve a nail in a can of this, but these don't really give me heartburn, but coffee just makes me like shit now.
Well, you're just falling apart, Chris.
Yeah, dude, I'm dying.
We're here for you, man.
I'm dying. I'm turning 38 this week.
That's the age where it's should I even tell him happy birthday? Is that even a happy occasion?
No, definitely not. I'm 38. My liver is 62. My lungs are probably in their 50s. It's not going well over here.
People on YouTube, a shout out in the comments. Happy birthday, Chris. This will come up after his birthday. Give him a good old shout out. He's falling apart over there.
Yep.
But
Flew
thankfully
my
we
back out
can.
on Friday, getting out of bed. Not making that up. That's just a thing that happened.
Or actually, F's in chat for Chris, rather. F's in
F's
chat
in
for Chris.
chat, yeah.
Okay, Lorwyn Eclipse. So I got a little taste of this at pre-release last night. Super cool set from a limited perspective, but this is what you would call like a typo set. It's half of the set is focused around goblins, merfolk, blah 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 blah, and that stuff just doesn't translate to cube. So we actually don't have a lot of pickups from Lorwyn Eclipse, but the cards we are getting, we've got I think at least one card per color. That's kind of a banger, worth talking about. Which is where I want to be with a modern age set, especially a super parasitic one. Just Teld, I got your opinions a little bit in the peasant review episode, but Chris, like after looking at War on Eclipse a little bit and some of the cards we're going to bring in, do you have like an initial thought about the set or any of the stuff coming in? Like, does Lorwyn Eclipse excite you? Do you have any attachment to old Lorwyn from 2007?
The original Lorwyn happened between when I quit playing Magic in high school and when I came back to it as an adult. I know that this is like an extremely nostalgic plane for a lot of people, and I was personally excited to return to it just because it's so legendary. But I don't know. I wouldn't say that this one really grabbed me. But also my engagement with the game has been on the lower end for a while now. So there are some cards in here that I do like. But it didn't really feel, I don't know. I'm much more interested in sort of like your relationship with the set, considering that I think for our end of year review episode at the end of 2025, I think you called this out as the set you were the most looking forward to this year. So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
did it hit? How did it hit for you?
I mean, it was super fun. It was an interesting sealed experience. That's all I've played so far. In that it's so much of the set is
Oh,
built around
I
creature
do not
types.
miss
So
that format.
I mean, sealed's a wash, honestly. But
Yeah, sealed sucks.
I wish I could just draft for pre-release. But I understand that's a lot more coordination for LGSs. But
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't have a relationship to original Lorwyn, and from the sounds of it, a lot of people are excited about this set because they weren't around for original Lorwyn, and this is kind of like a first peek for a lot of Magic players at an old plane. After coming off of two Universes Beyond sets, it's like, oh, real Magic. 2026 gets to start off with real Magic, so the art's great. It's got a lot of world build into it. I think it's going to be a really fun draft format, so it's got a lot of big thumbs up for me so far. And obviously, I went 5 wins and a draw across 2 events yesterday. So it's always nice when I start off a set with like
Yeah,
Yeah.
a good record.
solid, dude.
Yeah.
Very solid.
This is one of the rare sets that came out before I started playing Magic at this point. Like, I started playing around Zendikar, Scars, and Mirrodin blocks, so I missed Lorwyn by a couple of years. But at this point, I've been a part of most of Magic's planes in some capacity. It's rare that it's just been this long since we've visited a plane.
Yeah, I wonder, are there any block sets that we haven't revisited? Like, I know there's like Arabian Nights and Rabaya and stuff.
Arcadian Masks or something like that, maybe. Some of those
I
super
guess
old planes.
the old ones, yeah. I was just thinking that. I was like, Lorwyn feels special because we've never been back to Lorwyn and it's been 15 years or whatever, 20 years almost since those sets came out. But I don't think they're like, we've been back to Kamigawa, we've been back to Mirrodin, blah, blah, blah. So,
And to a certain extent, I kind of get why we haven't been back to Lorwyn. Like, looking at the set, like, don't get me wrong, I do think it's a very good-looking set in terms of art direction and stuff, but, like, Kithkin are pretty unique to this plane, and they don't really fit within the types that you normally see in other Magic sets. The focus on typal stuff is kind of, I think it's going to be detrimental personally. Like, my early feedback that I've heard from like pre-release and from kind of the stuff that they did on Arena and stuff is that the synergies are very, very strong in terms of being very linear, creature focused. Just trying to collect them all of the card types or of the creature types. So I mean, I think the set looks a little rough in that regard. It doesn't, but all things considered, like the art direction and this kind of reminds me a little bit of Bloomburrow. I mean, it's another type of set, right? But like the art direction in that set was really good. The flavor was on point. There was a lot of cool stuff going on, but in terms of Cube, there was a little bit less. Now, I think set is worse for Cube than Bloomburrow because that set did at least have some bangers and some exciting cards, and I think this has fewer of those. I think Bloomburrow was a little because it was more mechanic focused. I think the mechanics mattered more than the creature type ultimately. I think, if I remember right.
All right, so yeah, we're going to be talking a lot of Lorwyn cards here, as well as cards coming out of the cube. Before we do all that, remember the best way to support Jank Diver Gaming and the Jank Tank podcast is to join the Discord server. Come draft with us, give us your feedback. It's a great place to hang out with like-minded individuals and talk about Cube, Retail Limited, all things Magic. You can find links to our Discord server wherever you're listening to this podcast. On YouTube, it'll be in the description down below. We host tons of scheduled drafts throughout the week, including our Peasant Cube on Saturday nights, the mainline Jank Diver Gaming Cube, which is the focus of this episode. We draft that on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights on occasion. And all things, we also draft various guest cubes created by members of our server throughout the week. Lots and lots and lots of guest cubes. So there's always plenty to do on the Jank Diver Gaming server. We've got over 1,000 members in there, lots of people to talk to. You can check out our socials, basically just youtube.com/JankDiverGaming, and you can find Teld streaming on twitch.tv/TeldTalks. And just a reminder that if you want to follow along and see the cards in a different capacity, with maybe a few notes here and there for this episode, you can find a link to our show notes in the description wherever you're listening to this, and you'll see kind of what we use in the background to guide us for these episodes. And mostly it's just pictures of what's coming in and out for this episode. But let's talk just logistics and set mechanics really quickly. I do kind of want to maintain this part of the set reviews, but we don't have to spend a lot of time on mechanics because a lot of them are like one-offs in this set. But thematically, we've already talked about Lorwyn and what it means. Logistically, there's no big bonus sheet this time around. There is a special guests, sheet or whatever of 20 cards, and we'll talk about one or two of those at the very end, but nothing that like absolutely demands being played in a high power level environment, and they're all reprints. So if you're already maintaining a, Eternal Cube or something like that, they're not new cards that we need to discuss in length. And as we already mentioned, so much of the set is revolving around elves and merfolk and goblins and kithkin and whatever elementals as the five big archetypes, that a lot of the big splashy cards in this set just don't make it in a cube environment. So we're going to unfortunately not be talking about a lot of the most powerful cards in the set because they're not generically powerful. Set mechanics. I originally wrote Evoke on here when I first put this document together because one of the first cards they spoiled from this set had Evoke, but turns out Evoke only exists on 5 mythic rares and a commander card, so it's not really a big part of the set, which is unfortunate because Evoke is really, really cool. But we're going to talk about all of those Evoke elementals, and a lot of them are going to make our cube, at least to try out because they're the coolest cards in the set. Kindred as a card type is back. That's just playing into the kind of themes of the set. You'll see like Kindred elemental sorcery. It doesn't really do much. The only real note about Kindred is that it does add a card type for things like Delirium, or if you're on like Atraxa Grand Unifier, it is a card type that you can pick up with Atraxa. So it's a card type that matters for anything that cares about card types. Changeling is back. I don't know if we're going to talk about a Changeling in this episode. I think we'll talk about one, but I love Changelings, but again, we're not pushing any typal themes. We're not playing humans in our Jank Diver Gaming Cube, so Changeling really doesn't matter outside of like enabling some really awkward trinket text like Glorybringer can't kill dragons, that sort of thing. So I don't know why you're Glorybringering down a 1/1 Changeling, but it happens sometimes. Convoke is back, pretty straightforward mechanic we've seen tons and tons of times again, and does have a place in cube depending on what the card is. And then Persist was listed on WotC's document of mechanics from Lorwyn, but Persist is only on 2 cards in the set, so one of which we will talk about. And that's the one where a creature without a -1/-1 counter on it comes back into play when it dies. If it didn't have a -1/-1 counter, it comes back into play with a -1/-1 counter. The 2 new mechanics, which I don't know what capacity these are going to show up in this review. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but Blight is the big one. This is like the headliner mechanic of the set. And blight always comes with a number and basically tells you to put that many -1/-1 counters on a creature you control. So if you are instructed to blight 2, you choose a creature you control and you put 2 -1/-1 counters on it. And it's most often used as a additional cost to either get an overstated creature or some sort of bigger effect on your spell. I think there's very few cards that make you blight your opponent as kind of removal. Most of the cards are blighting you as a downside or a balance and mechanic for really strong cards. And then Vivid is the other new mechanic. It's really just an ability word that checks the number of colors among permanents you control on the battlefield. So think like Devotion, but instead of checking the colors in the mana cost, you're just checking the number of colors you have. And a good example of Vivid is they brought Bloom Tender back. They reprinted Bloom Tender, and they just gave it the same ability it already had, but marked it with Vivid because that's how Vivid works. So we're talking about a Vivid card. We might talk about a Vivid card here too. Though none of these mechanics are going to come up in like a huge capacity for us, but so we might have a one-off blight card or a one-off Vivid card. So.
Yeah, I mean, Bloom Tender's probably a perfectly playable cube card if you want it. Makes 2 or 3 mana, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, and Bloom Tender, like we already had access to that card, so it's not like some exciting reprint. It was on, was it Streets of New Capenna bonus sheet or special guest or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it has that Art Deco kind of art to it. So, any thoughts about mechanics or anything before we start jumping into some white cards to talk about?
Wish we'd got more Evoke cards.
Yeah.
The ones we got were pretty good.
Did we get more Evoke cards?
Yeah. The ones we got were pretty good.
Yeah. That's a shame. They really baited us early with like, Bitter Bloom Bearer and Emptiness, and look how cool this set is. Yeah. They got us good.
No Evoke, no Fairy Tribal. Sorry, boys.
No, none of that. The Evoke cards are cool. They're going to show up at the end in the multicolor section, so I'm very excited to talk about those. And one that I've even gone up higher on since we chatted about it. With our swaps. But yeah, let's jump into this bad boy. And you'll notice the color sections are short. I think white, blue, black each have 2 cards that we're going to discuss, and we'll move on from there. So it'll be a swift little set review here. But let's kick things off with the card that's been sitting on screen here this whole time, which is I don't know, what would you say, Kinskar, some German thing going on here.
Yes.
Kinskar Sentry. I'm gonna say Kinskar.
Okay.
One in a white for a 2/2 Kithkin soldier with first strike and lifelink. Whenever this creature attacks, you may put a creature card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking, where X is the number of attacking creatures you control. So, bear with good keywords and potentially busted ability. I would like this card a lot more if we were playing more 1-drops so that it could just do the thing on its own. Right now, we have 3 1-drops in our white section, which I know to some people is probably crazy. They're like, how are you only playing 3 white 1-drops? But they suck. I mean, all the Savannah lines just suck. And there's so much argument about like, well, your white aggressive decks just need Savannah lines. They have to have Savannah lines. And we just don't think that's true. Like, that's just proven itself to not be true.
Well, we've seen
they need 1-drops.
Yeah. Well, we've seen white be performing lately, and the way it performs is by playing good cards instead of 1-drops.
Yeah, they want 1-drops on the board, but they don't want creatures that drop off on turn 2 if your opponent plays a token. So that's really
the thing, I think, especially considering that a lot of the at least the direction that we've taken our white section in recent memory is you can augment your present on the board with anthems and things of that nature. I would much rather see a selection of Inspector-esque type cards that provide like a value on a body that can then be made to, enhanced essentially. I'd rather see more 3-man Inspectors than Savannah Lions. And if they're gonna give us good white Savannah Lions, then they need to take a cue from red and give us white Savannah Lions like Kellen, Planar Trailblazer. Savannah Lions with minor upsides just not really good enough anymore.
Yeah, it's weird that they keep refusing to give white meaningful one drops, while red continues to get cards like Kellen and Kamado faces Kazakhstan and Higher Claw and these one drops
Higher
that
Claw is good.
yeah,
Yeah.
these one drops that are just consistently really good. I think the other thing too, and this is like a color pie thing, is that the white one drops are worse than the red one drops, even if they're equivalent, because red can pair those one drops with cheap burn, which allows you to continue deploying creatures while attacking. And white can't do that. White's removal is a little more expensive, so you're having difficulty getting rid of the cards that are in play in the first place. So yeah, you need a lot out of white one drops to be good. Even in when you account for like the more powerful cards on the arena client that we aren't on. I mean, it's like, yeah, you've got like, is Mom on the client? I think it is now, but you've got like Giver of Runes and Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls, but like all of those are just, you know, absurdly powerful cards. Giver of Runes is probably the worst of those and still better than any card we play in our white section.
Yeah.
The early game.
I mean, and this is all to say, like, that's a discussion of white one drops, but as far as this 2-drop, you know, Kithkin goes, like, it would be better if we played more one drops, but I mean, this card can do some absurd stuff. I'm actually even worried that, like, on some occasion you'll be dropping some 3-drop into play with this. That doesn't even seem far-fetched to me. We do see boards get built out in these, like, Selesnya, you know, Abzan Spectrum decks, and this thing can attack with a couple other creatures and put a 2-drop into play or a 3-drop into play. That's pretty good, and they didn't skimp on stats here. Like, first strike lifelink on a 2-mana 2/2 is not bad at all. So just a neat, well-rounded, you know, this could have easily said, like, put a Kithkin into play, tapped and attacking, and then we'd be like, don't care, but they didn't do that. So we're going to test this one out.
This works the way you want with Voice of Victory, right?
I think so.
You stack the triggers so that the tokens
you stack the triggers so the tokens come out first.
Yeah, so you'll have four attacking creatures if you stack, and then you put Beza into play or something for free.
Yeah.
Whatever 4-drop Dion into play.
Yeah, I don't think this card's average play pattern is going to be super powerful, but I think the floor is high enough that it's a fine test, and the ceiling is pretty terrifying, but the lack of one drops means that I'm not as concerned about it. It's going to be kind of a mid-game play, and, you know, at that point, if it ends up being like a 2-drop that you have to answer, that's good. That's good for what?
Yeah. The card coming out for that is, I thought they were going to be in order here. Good old Split Skin Doll. This was a nice little card to pick up from Duskmourn. I think we initially skipped over it, and then post-review we were like, isn't this just going to be better than, like, Spirited Companion most of the time? And it is. It's kind of like a mediocre role player, a fine card to put in any deck that cares about just putting bodies on board and wants to attack. But it's not a particularly powerful card. So we're cutting it here just because the white 2-drops have caught up to stuff like this. Get a lot more value off of a lot of the other white 2-drops than just, you know, a cantrip creature. And Split Skin Doll doesn't always cantrip. The artifact, if you can make the artifact subtype matter, which it does a lot in Peasant Cube, then this card is actually really good because it's pulling even more weight beyond just the rules text. But that really doesn't matter for us.
Also, in Peasant Cube, you know, we've talked about the Skyfisher thing. That just isn't the case in the mainline cube at the moment. You know, we've dabbled with a Skyfisher or two over the time we've had it in the cube, and it just isn't great. I thought some Procurum was fine when we played it, but it was, you know, you had to kind of build towards it as opposed to it just being a free roll. And so, you know, the lack of being able to do all the recursive loopy stuff, I think, also takes away from this card's value. So.
It's a solid little guy, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think we can do better than solid little guy at this point.
Yeah, which sucks because Chris, I know you're fond of like uncommons that are like good enough for higher power.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of cube curators are, right. It's like you have these cards in your list that, you know, maybe someone a little bit less experienced would be like, well, that looks kind of dorky in here. And it's like cards like this they kind of make you feel smart for including them because they're good enough and they appear so innocuous. But I mean, I think it's still like up to snuff. It's just like the ceiling on the Sentry is way higher.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, with the Sentry, I don't think, at least in our cube, I think like it's probably not going to be maximized in super duper low to the ground decks because, you know, there will come a point where, you know, cheating the mana aspect of playing cards doesn't really matter because you can just pay for it. Now, granted, the card does come in tapped and attacking, so that obviously provides you with tempo. But I think that where you're probably going to get the most juice out of a card like this is in a mid-range deck that can make a lot of tokens and has like a good number of 3 and 4 drops that you could conceivably cheat into play after putting some shitters on board. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Honestly, one thing that does concern me about it, and we do have plenty of solid cheap removal, at least in our environment, so I don't know how often this will be a sticking point. But there will be games where you're playing into a mid-range deck that has this card, maybe a deck with some of the aforementioned anthems we were talking about, and the fact that this is just a first striking lifelinker is just going to make your opponent impossible to kill. But we do have enough cheap removal in the cube. I don't think that that's going to come up a ton. It's just first strike and lifelink is a pretty gnarly combination of keywords. If you're playing an aggressively oriented deck.
I think the most powerful thing that this card's doing in our environment is, I mean, outside of like, unless you high roll and you're like, I get to put a 5-drop into play, you're probably winning that game anyways. But in terms of like average play patterns, I think being able to continue advancing your board while also being able to hold up Reprieve, Wandering Emperor, Ember Cleave, whatever flash, instant equipment, combat tricky, adjacent sort of thing that you want to be holding up. I think that's actually pretty powerful. That's something that, but there's kind of a tension there too, right? Because all of those cards don't contribute towards making this thing work. So it'll be interesting to see if this card has legs to really do anything in the cube. I do think the first strike lifelink body, like once you get a counter on it or an anthem in play, is going to be super obnoxious for a number of decks though.
It'll pair well in Boros as well, just because we've talked about this ad nauseum. First strike and burn are a very, very nice synergy. Sure. Turning your shocks into doom blades.
Yeah, I hope the card performs well on average and does the like put a 4-drop into play like often enough to be cool, but not like every game. I want to see it happen, but I don't want to see it happen all the time.
I really want to put an Enduring Curiosity into play with this thing.
We could put a 4-drop, yeah, and blue white. I mean, blue white might be a good home for it. Honestly, it's blue white like tempo aggro decks, but okay, the other white 2-drop and the only other white card we're going to talk about here is Reese the Evermore, which is 1 and a white for a 2/2 Elf Warrior legendary. Flash, when it enters, another target creature you control gains persist until end of turn. So again, if it dies that turn and didn't have a -1/-1 counter on it, it returns to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter. And Reese also has an activated ability. It's white, tap, remove any number of counters from target creature you control at sorcery speed. So the joke being this can remove the -1/-1 counter from the creature that it persisted. Notably, persist doesn't work on 1 toughness creatures. I mean, it does, but they'll come back and die immediately with the -1 counter. But anything bigger than an X1 will be able to come back into play. So this is this seems fine to me without being like busted or anything. I think as far as like flash protection creature goes, which is starting to become like a category all its own. Plume-Creed Esport. I think Ademi from Spider-Man or what is it? Spectacular Spider-Man in paper. I think that's a stronger card than Reese. Just because it has better stats, it has a little bit of evasion, it can protect a whole board by sacking itself. The counter removal here is not going to come up super often. I think Ademi is a stronger card. The unfortunate part about that is if you're an arena player, it has some really hideous art.
Well, what's the alternative? You have a Spider-Man in your cube?
I was going to say, if you're a paper player, it has some really hideous art. That's the Gooch Spider-Man in paper. But what do we think of Reese here? I'm not as excited about this one as the other 2-drop.
I like it more, but that's because these sort of flash protection-y sort of things are just, they're things I like to do in cube. I think they make you feel big brain when you pull them off. They let you lean towards some synergies. Specifically, the most powerful thing you can do with this card, unfortunately, is not available in our power banding, which is put a Solitude into play and then flicker it, or persist it. Which is super, super powerful. But in that vein, I do think if you're trying to make this card better than something that gives hexproof indestructible, like the card we're actually replacing is going to be a card that gives indestructible to your creatures. So I think the way you try to break this parity is you're trying to get an ETB trigger. You're trying to get an LTB trigger, something like a dice trigger or whatever off of your card. It's interesting, the second line of text looks mostly gimmicky. First of all, you can spend a mana basically to give your creature +1/+1, presumably, if you just, did the persist thing. But we are bringing in a card that this is actually just a straight up combo with, which I think is very funny. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But this does enable a sort of little combo in the Jake Diver Gaming Cube.
It'll be fun to see if that comes up. They're both individually powerful cards. So, what are we're replacing Selfless Spirit here, which I still maintain Selfless Spirit is a fine card. This card was ahead of its time when it came out.
Oh yeah,
2015.
Wasn't this like a $10 card at one point?
Yeah, it was worth a good bit of money. It wasn't the first creature. I think Dauntless Escort was the first creature that did this effect, but 2/1 for a flyer for 2 used to be a premium stat line on an aggressive creature, and it's still a good stat line, but it's like the bear that it's the stat line you need to justify a creature these days because they print so many of them that it's no longer like premium to have a 2-mana 2/1 flyer. That's just what you would expect. It's not above and beyond. And then this being in play is really annoying. We've seen this where people have to basically just blow a removal spell on your 2-drop when they would much rather kill your 3-drop or something else because they can't get rid of the other thing. And this was a real pain. If we ever bring back Loris of the Dream, then I think we consider Selfless Spirit again. That's a really tough combo to get through. But I think this card has shown its age a little bit with some of the other protection creatures. Like, again, I think Ademi is just a stronger, or Spectacular Spider-Man is just a stronger card than Selfless Spirit most of the time and just hits harder when you need it to. So I like Selfless Spirit. I don't think it's a bad card. But we got a lot of white 2s and 2 white 2-drops coming in from this set. We had to make room for them, so Selfless Spirit got cut.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how often Riss is better than this. I don't actually know, right? Because I think on average, the Selfless Spirit having evasion to attack is really nice. The Selfless Spirit protecting against rats is pretty relevant in some cases. Riss definitely has more of like we're going to do tricksy mid-combat sort of things going on. I think like if you can flash Riss in, you give a creature persist, you block with the Riss, you block with the creature, you persist the creature back. Like that's pretty good. That is pretty good. But I think I want to test Riss because I think it's really cool. I think the art's great. I think the design is really nifty. I wonder how many hoops you're going to have to jump through to be better than Selfless Spirit on average, though. I do kind of, there's that thought in the back of my mind. Like, it does feel like we're going to have to go the extra mile to make Riss be better than this card.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Teld, I think where you're going to get value out of Reese that you don't out of something like Selfless Spirit is when you're trading something off that either has like a death trigger or an ETB trigger, to keep that creature up and then like rebuy. Outside of being able to like have this utility to remove like -1/-1 counters that you're putting on your stuff for some kind of profit, I don't know how powerful I think this is going to be, but I think it's worth trying out.
Definitely.
It's probably worth noting too that I mentioned the blight mechanic up front, but like I said, half of this set was based around the creature types. The other half is based around -1/-1 counters. Like so much of the set is dedicated to the blight mechanic and using it as a resource or using it as a balancing tool. Or there's tons of creatures that have huge stat lines for their cost, but they come in with some number of -1/-1 counters. And Reese has way more synergy when you surround it with stuff like that. Because it can just, turbocharge some of your gigantic creatures by removing all the -1 counters. But that stuff just doesn't translate to cube. So we're not going to see a lot of that blight stuff. We're not going to see a lot of that -1 counter management stuff here. But just, Reese makes a lot more sense in the context of its actual set than it does in a cube environment.
Which, we're about to talk about like 3 cards that all care about these -1/-1 counters, but those cards, Reese's synergy with those cards is of course contingent on those cards being in the cube, but that's not a guarantee either.
Yeah, which, I mean, like, okay, so let's move into blue, and it's like, would you even want to use Reese on this card if you had the opportunity? Probably not. So,
No.
The first blue card here is Glen Alendra Guardian. 2 and a blue for a 3/4. That's what I'm talking about. 3 mana, 3/4 flash flyer. It's just like, what's going on there? This creature enters with a -1/-1 counter on it. So functionally a 3 mana 2/3. But you can pay 1 in a blue, remove any counter from this creature to counter a target non-creature spell, and the controller of that spell draws a card. Now, when Teld read this card and thought that it drew you a card while countering your opponent's spell, that might have been the best blue card ever printed. But it does the like Urtai style counter spell where it hits your opponent's spell, but it replaces it with a card for them. So, but then you get a 3/4, like you're getting a 3/4 beater in the air while also just like tempoing your opponent on their non-creature spell.
Yeah, I mean, and when you think about your average deck construction, you're going to be 40-50% lands, right? So like about half the time you counter something with this card, you're giving your opponent something that's probably worse than whatever they cast. This is a really interesting card because, yeah, like when I first read it, I thought this was the most broken card I'd ever seen. I do wonder, too, is there's ever going to be spots, because I hadn't noticed this. This doesn't require you to counter an opponent's spell. So, like, I wonder if there's going to be spots that come up where you counter your own spell almost to, like, cycle it. I don't...
Yeah, you know how sometimes you remand your own spell against another counter spell? Like, you could do that. You play something, they counter it, and it's like, okay, instead of countering your spell and drawing you a card, I'm just going to counter the spell I cast and draw a card,
Yeah. Like, I just don't really care about this card. I would rather have the extra card. I doubt that'll come up too often because that feels like it's going to be very mana intensive and you would rather just counter your opponent's card and get your card in play. But sometimes that might come up. This card's really interesting. It seems like it could be the kind of card that's really oppressive when it gets ahead. In the Peasant review, I kept talking about cards that wanted to do this thing and didn't have flash themselves. And hey, this one has flash, so we can flash it in at the end of turn 3 on our opponent if we're not too far behind. And then we can start, blocking, chipping in damage while holding up this effect. And, I mean, if you think about this as, like, counter your first removal spell your opponent casts, I mean, think about how often people skimp on removal and they're down to, like, 4 or 5 removal spells in their deck. If you're just able to hold this up and you're playing the blue deck and, like, I'm going to be playing at flash speed for 3/4 of my cards anyways, I could see this card being really, really, really obnoxious.
Yeah, I think it's going to create some interesting kind of like shell games too, where your opponent is like floating out whatever non-creature spell is least mission critical for them, and basically trying to find a spot where it makes sense for you to burn this ability. Like there will be times that you counter their Doomblade or whatever, and then they immediately follow it up with like a Wrath or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or like a Planeswalker or whatever, but because these kind of any kind of heads up counter something ability kind of creates those little games. I think
Chris,
do you
remember Stoic Sphinx?
I do remember Stoic Sphinx. Yeah.
This kind of got Stoic Sphinx. I mean, it's not as good, but this has Stoic Sphinxy kind of vibes of the shell game you're talking about.
That card is still so broken. I still just like when I play it, when I play Brawl, it's sorcerer. It's just like, oh, you tapped out. I don't care. Sometimes they'll be on like 4 or 5 mana, and I'm just like, yeah, you could cast something really hardcore next turn that I would want to counter, but having a 5/3 hexproof flyer in play just seems better.
Yeah.
But yeah, this just like many or any card really with this kind of like on board sort of ability that has to be played around. It's going to reward players who are at a skill level where they know like exactly what they will lose to and make the decision about whether or not it's worth countering anything else. I think it's going to create some interesting play. I also like it's like a kind of a cool little throwback to Glenelendra Archmage. I think that's the name, just because of the -1/-1 counters. Yeah. So yeah, that's not a card that is for us anymore, but this is good.
Yeah, I think too the other thing that this is why blue cards are sometimes hard to evaluate, is that these cards don't exist in a vacuum, and blue cards, that is the most relevant thing you can remember, is that you're not playing this as the only thing that you can spend 1 in a blue on. Right? When you've got this in play, you've got the whole hand of things that you can be doing. You've got your Flood Pit Drowners and your other counter spells and, your Enduring Curiosities and all that sort of stuff. And it makes it so hard to play against blue to a point that I think at a certain point it gets to where you're just like, okay, well, they could have one of like 15 different cards here, so I just have to play as if none of them exist. I can't play around all of them. We're just going to jam our cards. But like this card doesn't exist in a vacuum. The other things you can be doing with that mana while holding up this threat are all things your opponent have to like consider as things that could exist. So it leaves your opponent a lot of room to misplay if they, and like I said, I'm at the point where I just make them have it. Like I'm too old to care about all of this stuff. Like I just make them have it. But like, I can see if you're trying to play around a bunch of stuff that this card will cause some serious mental fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, speaking of not being in a vacuum, pair this with any of those counter engine. Put this with a Luminarch aspirant, and
Oh yeah.
this can remove +1 counters. So like,
Yep.
every turn, it's just like you'll never resolve a non-creature spell if I don't want you to. If I have any way to put +1 counters on this after using the -1 counter, and then it's like, imagine you just have this with Luminarch aspirant. It's a 3/4, it's a 4/5, it's a 5/6, and it's like you can't resolve. You'll shrink my dude, but you can't resolve non-creature spells.
That sounds awesome.
Um, or Prophecytic Memory comes to mind as well as a on color way to put +1 counter. So there's probably, again, going back to the design of the set, like if you can blight this thing to get extra -1 counters on this to then counter your opponent's additional like there's just a lot of synergy there that doesn't show up, but this can use any kind of counter. So the card that's coming out for us, Kylie, we usually try not to cut cards from the most recent set, but we like all the other blue threes a little bit more. I think Ty Lee Chi Blocker from Avatar is just kind of a medium card in the way that it plays out. It is really cool for Is It Prowess style decks, but this plays out more like Banish and Light that your opponent can kill, because unless your opponent's board just stays clear, even with Prowess, like you can get this up to a 3/2, maybe even a 4/3 with a flurry of spells. You're still probably getting it blocked and then unlocking their creature. So it's really good in Is It decks that can just keep the board completely clear, but Is It decks have to play to the board too. So I feel like it doesn't actually get to attack that often.
I don't think I've ever seen
it's
it
fine.
really attack. I mean, it's fine. Yeah, it's a decent tempo creature. It's cool. It had the flash removal spell function or whatever, but yeah, there's just also so many tokens floating around that it's hard to find spots. Even a lot of times you have to like try to trade for a token with a prowess trigger, or they can just put.
And we like Jill more than this, right? The bounce creature from Final Fantasy.
Yeah, Jill's really high.
I think the other thing that should be mentioned is I think a lot of the creatures that really work best in like Is It Prowess, kind of, I like having them concentrated in red because they're just good in like red decks too because of the density of burn. And this is not obviously this is entirely dependent on your cube design, but the blue creature section tends to be the smallest creature section in most cubes. So having creature spots that are really maximized by being in a specific color pair, it's the real estate is a little bit more painful in blue than it might be in some of your other creature sections. I mean, shit, I've seen 360 card cubes that are running like 14 blue creatures. I don't for the way that we design and the way that power is concentrated in cards in contemporary Magic. There are enough really good blue creatures. I don't really think that there's a compelling reason to do that anymore, unless you have a specific design goal, like you're playing like a very combo-oriented cube where creatures are not as important or what have you. But anyway, all of this is to say that I think blue creature real estate is pretty premium, and you want your blue creatures to kind of be as multifunctional as possible.
Yeah.
If you
makes
can,
sense.
or have flash, so they play well with instant speed effects, which Ty Lee does, but the fact that the body only becomes combat relevant if you can trigger it on your own turn, it just there's a lot of tension with the way that like what we want our blue creatures, I think, to be doing.
And to tell you how important every point of stats are in Magic, I think if this were a 2/2, we might not be having this conversation.
I think we'd be having a very different conversation. Being able to get it up to 3 toughness with a single, mid combat burn spell, I think that's a big threshold.
That's a huge difference
in terms of how.
When you get to attack. Yeah, exactly.
Monastery Swiftspear would not have been the card that it was if it was a 1/1 instead of a 1/2.
No.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to mention too is that there's only a limited space for blue threes too, because blue twos in the last year or so have gotten so unbelievably pushed that, especially given the way you want to be using your blue twos, which is that you want to play blue twos that loot. That's the best thing you can do in most of your blue decks on turn 2 is just get a looter into play to sculpt your hand. And so if a card, there's a really, and this doesn't affect this because we're swapping a 3 for a 3, but it does mean that there's just not a lot of room for blue 3s. Sometimes with other colors, we can kind of shift cards around up or down the curve, but blue 2s are just mission critical to like getting blue decks to work.
Yeah.
That's 2 mission criticals this episode.
Well, it's critical. You got to reinforce that point.
Okay. Oh, well, nice transition there because we got a blue 2 here to talk about. I'm going to assume that was intentional. This card reminds me of that Surge engine thing from Brothers War that you guys like. The art on that, man, I'm looking at the art blown up here. This art is super sweet. Chris Ron, you killed it. Lockmare, this is a mythic. I didn't realize this was mythic, but doesn't read like mythic to me. Lockmare is 1 in a blue for a 4/5 mythic rare horse serpent. It enters the battlefield with 3 -1/-1 counter. So 2 mana for a 1/2 to start off with. You can pay 1 in a blue to remove a counter from this creature to draw a card, or you can pay 2 in a blue, remove 2 counters from this creature, tap target creature, and put a stun counter on it. So.
Yeah. Was this the hardest card to evaluate in the entire set?
This end will touch on the Flitterwing guy and the, OLAs or whatever, OLIs. Yeah, so it's so easy to see the potential of this card, right? It's like, oh, given enough time and enough mana, this will be a 2 mana 4/5 that presumably drew a card, tapped a creature down, or drew 3 cards or whatever. But you have to spend time and mana to make it good. And it's so hard to evaluate these creatures that are like really understated. 2 mana 1/2 when you cast it, but have a massive upside. It's better to even think about this as like, this is a 2 mana 1/2 that has activated abilities that put +1/+1 counters on it functionally, instead of thinking about it as like, oh, this is downside that goes away or whatever. It's just like, man, we're going to test the card. There's upside here, but stomach in a 2 mana 1/2 that you then have to pay additional mana into to make it relevant in combat. That's a tough pill to swallow. For any creature, not just this one, but it's like, is it worth spending my turns to grow this creature while also doing other things, whether it's cantripping or locking down a creature? I mean, if you go this on 2, your opponent plays a 2-drop. On turn 3, you just activate the second ability. It's a 3/4 that's bashing and lock down an opponent's creature. I don't even know how good that is, right? Yeah. But where this gets really good is when you surround it with other instant speed stuff, like Teld said, and suddenly you can either remand your opponent's spell, or they didn't cast anything you need to remand, you can grow this creature and draw a card. That's actually pretty good. So I still don't know where this is, like the perfect Tonk card. Try out the new card, because like it could be really good, it could totally suck. How will we know if we don't try it out?
Yeah, I think I've come up on it a little bit since we had our off mic conversation about it. I know, like, obviously this would be a different card, but I think, and who knows? Like, this is my opinion, having not played with the card at all. It's possible that like some of my similar takes I've had in the past to this effect, like making it that little bit better, would have just been too much. But I would have liked to have seen this thing at full size be a 4/6. So when you play it, it has a 3rd point of toughness, and it has the ability to block like literally anything before you put more mana into it. Because a 1/2, if you're trading it, you're not. I mean, I guess there are things it could trade for where it's like, okay, I traded my 2-drop for my 2-drop. Or 2-drop for like a 1 toughness 2-drop of some kind, whatever. You might conceivably do this, and it's possible that it being able to, gain you some virtual life by blocking 2 toughness creatures before you start sinking, or 2 power creatures before you start sinking some more resources into it. Maybe at the end of the day, that would be too good. What I do like about this is it's kind of like, we've talked about this before, like a control finisher doesn't really need to be some like insanely impressive card once you've sort of won the resources war. It just has to have power and toughness and be able to win. And like, if you were to read this as like 8 mana 4/5 draw 3 cards, like obviously we wouldn't play that, right? Because it would be uncastable. But the fact that you can put this down on 2 and then gradually extract value out of it. Obviously, if these were sorcery speed only activated, then we wouldn't be having this discussion at all. Like, it would just not be worth talking about whatsoever. But it's a very unique creature. And I would hope that what the play pattern would be is that like a controlling deck would either roll this out on 2 against a deck where they feel like it's safe to be shields down on the second turn, or the classic pattern at the stage of, play a 2-drop, hold up a counter spell once you hit 4 mana, and then go from there. The stun activation is a little pricey mana wise, but as long as you're holding this up like into red decks, you can insulate yourself from getting like your ass blown out by a glory bringer or some other haste creature that's going to completely change the texture of combat. My guess is that this is probably going to be of a middling power level at the end of the day. But I'm interested enough in the play patterns to hope that it is good. And as of right now, I mean, a lot of our blue twos, you put them in your controlling decks, but they're sort of, I guess, a little bit more oriented towards tempo, in my opinion. Although, as we've discussed at length on this podcast, the delta in between like a control deck and a tempo deck has sort of narrowed over the years as cheap blue creatures have gotten better. But I do like how mechanically unique this is relative to our other blue creature options, and I hope that it turns out to be a pretty solid card.
Yeah. If you asked me to put money on it, I would say I think this card's going to be like the worst blue 2-drop we play. If I had if I had to put like the money bet on it, right? But it's a super interesting design. It has a lot of promise and a really cool ceiling. I think it's a really neat design, so I'm cool to try it. It's just hard to imagine this actually being good, given how good the cheap red burn is in the cube, given how good some of the mid-rangey finishers are, like even in blue decks, like let's say you play this on 2, right? And then like on turn 3, a lot of times you want to play, a Sphalin or a Seed Shark or, whatever. You want to spend your mana playing a threat sometimes. At what point are we getting so far behind that we're not able to ever activate this? I think that's going to be pretty easy. It's just hard to imagine a card that requires us to sink a total of like 7-8 mana into it is going to be good. But again, the like ceiling is there, and I think against aggressive decks, if you're ever able to activate it, which I don't know if you will be able to, but it seems like the sizing there will matter. And so we can just, tap down their hasty dude, we like make a big blocker, and now we're in an okay spot. And against control decks, presumably we can just like have our cheap card draw 3 cards, which also seems pretty good. So, I mean, I see the promise there, and I think it's really interesting. I love the design, but I think if I had to take a bet on it, I would go on the low roll as opposed to it being like an all-star or something.
Yeah, I would have, like I said, I would have liked to see this printed as a 4/6 base stats. I think that probably would have been fine.
Or like a 2/2 if it was like a 5/5 when you got finished, so there was a 2/2.
Yeah, or something like that. Just make it a little bit less combat irrelevant when you play it. This might have pushed it too hard, but I don't know if they had the room for the text, but flash on this would have been nice. Obviously, flash is just great on blue creatures. But yeah, we'll just have to see how it plays out. I am hopeful that this card is more impressive than it reads. This is not something that we're including because we think it's like a slam dunk. Yeah. This is kind of a try it and see, which I think is it's true for a lot of the cards that we're trying out in this set, just because it didn't feel particularly powerful as a set. But yeah, we'll just have to see. I hope it's good.
Chris,
I'm gonna Crested Sunmare deck.
Chris, I'm going to assume that you haven't watched the Peasant review because, you're just not much of a Peasant cuber these days. But Tim got on to me for saying I wanted basically every time we got to a blue creature is like, man, I wish this had flash.
Guys, if we haven't, hit it home enough times yet from people in the back, your blue creatures want flash.
Yes,
which
is why we're cutting this 2-drop with flash to make room for it.
To make room for your other flash. Yeah, we're cutting Fairy Mastermind.
Yuta Takahashi. Sorry, this has got to be my 2 cents. This is going to be a temporary cut. I imagine Fairy Mastermind. This might get reversed if Lockmere doesn't impress within like 3 drafts or something like that.
Or something. Yeah,
because Fairy Mastermind is a good card.
It is a good card.
It's a good card.
It's competing with a section full of great 2-drops at this point.
Yeah, I think my primary issue with Mastermind, and like Teld and I have had this discussion a million times, but there are so many forms of card advantage now that aren't technically drawing cards that this misses.
stock ups
especially
and such.
especially into red. Green has a lot of like look at the top, however many cards, and pick one. Red has a lot of impulse draw.
Even blue this year got like consult the star charts and stock up that look and then do the dig through time thing.
Yeah, intrude on the mind, doesn't draw. It is kind of annoying when you have this in play and your opponent draws cards but doesn't trigger the ability. Of course, the activated ability of forcing the draw does come up sometimes, and this is a 2-mana flash flyer for 2, so it's not terrible. It fits into what blue wants to do, but it is competing with Malcolm, which we all agree Malcolm is a stronger card.
It's gonna be hard to top Malcolm. It's so strong.
Well, all the flash looters or all the looters in general, the flash looters especially, are really good. I think the thing is that the reason I suspect that this won't be a long swap, like you said, Tim, is that this is the kind of card that you just play on turn 2 and then it has that activated ability, but it doesn't demand you use it. The Lockmere kind of demands that if we want our card to do anything, we have to use the mana.
Yeah. And our drafters do not like cards like that. Our drafters do not like, our regulars do not like cards that read, I have to put in work to make this card good.
Yeah.
Because which makes sense because the card is surrounded by other cards that do not require you to put in work. So it's the mentality, not spoken, but the mentality is, why would I put in work to make this card good when I could just take something else that doesn't require work? And that to me is going to be the nail in the coffin for Lockmere. I don't think people will take it highly, but there's promise and it's cool and interesting. So
yeah, and the work on it too, like when cards do start seeing play that kind of demand work in our environment, usually it's because when you do the work, you kick the doors down and your opponent gets just wrecked. There's not a lot of the Lockmere does feel again very marginal. It's all right, we're grinding some nice advantage, but it's not like even when you get everything on that card, it's not like you're like, oh man, we just broke this game wide open.
No. Again, if you can blight this thing and draw extra cards off of it, or if you have Proph's Eidetic, it's actually a really sweet combo with Proph's Eidetic Memory, where it's I'll remove a counter, draw a card, go to combat, put counter on it. It's its own little draw engine. But again, you're talking about 2-card synergies there instead of a self-contained thing, which a lot of the JDG cube is focused on cards being self-contained and good enough on
somebody recently compared the JDG cube to Phyrexia Obi-Wan. And that was really funny.
Really?
I take umbrage with that.
I get the sentiment they were going at, which was basically 1 and 2 mana cards felt outside, they had outsized importance in the cube. You just had to be ready, and that is true, right? At the moment of this video recording, before these swaps have actually gone through, we're on Flame Slash and Unholy Heat, which maybe we've pushed the red burn efficiency a little too far. I kind of when your 4-drops are dying to 1 mana red burn spells, maybe there's a problem. But that was kind of the point. Is we were kind of having that conversation of how many cheap cards do you need in your deck? And the answer is a lot. All the cheap cards.
Yeah.
We're worth noting that we made other changes to the Jank Diver Gaming Cube outside of the stuff that we're talking about in this video, but we figured let's just keep it to Lorwyn changes. And, the card that came out is mostly arbitrary, but I tried to line it up with, same mana value when possible. So moving into black, another Chris Ron art here. Guys killing it. Guys killing it out here. Bitterbloom Bearer. This set is so focused on nostalgia. This is I called this the Friends reunion of Magic the Gathering, because every card in this set is just trying to nostalgia bait you into some old Lorwyn card. But this was probably, I think, the first card spoiled from the set. Maybe it was
if this isn't if this isn't the best card in the set, I'm gonna be kind of shocked, actually.
It's double pipped. So black 1/1 flash flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 blue and black fairy creature token with flying. So Bitter Blossom, which traditionally is a card that has been too oppressive for our cube. I don't think it's quite in the conversation of we want to bring this back at any point yet, though I could see it in the future. It's actually dropped off in Vintage Cube. I don't think most high power level cubes even play Bitter Blossom, but
it's more the matchup polarization. We talked about that before, but it's if you resolve this on turn 2 against a lot of control decks, they just
can't
all right, GG. And then the aggro deck's just oh, you're paying life. I think I just said that I think this might be the best card in the set. And then I remember this card costs life for every fairy you make it, so that might be a nail in the coffin on that too. Paying life for stuff is not free in the year of our Lord 2026.
And
No,
black
it's
black
not.
mana cost is not
No,
guaranteed in a
No.
2-color deck either. So they
no.
balanced it. I think they made a really cool card here that has a high power threshold, but does have legitimate draw. It's a 1/1 flyer.
Yep.
It could die. You know.
Another card that gets got by Nova Hellkite. By the way, that card is a
Oh,
banger if you haven't played it in the Power Cube.
we just brought in fire magic. Like
Yeah.
this, sweep those bad boys away. Like this is a very cool card that I think will play more balanced than the Bitter Blossom, which I think is the point of the card. So
Yeah, it reminds me of Sinkhole Surveyor, and that card is very good. But Sinkhole Surveyor also the play pattern on that card isn't even make dudes. It's put points of power on the Sinkhole Surveyor.
yeah, it's grow that.
I do wonder if Sinkhole Surveyor is just better than this card is.
If you ask me right now, yeah, actually probably. I think I'm coming down on this card in real time. I haven't really put any thought into this card until this conversation, and it's like, yeah, like I think I would pick Sinkhole over this. It's easier to cast, and it kills your opponent a lot quicker.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was going to say the ceiling on this card is higher. I don't actually know if that's true though.
Is this card actually not very good?
the four, assuming you cast them on 2, is higher. It's 2 bodies guaranteed. That's not even guaranteed, but you know what I mean. Maybe Sinkhole Surveyor is actually just better than this, but this is like an obvious like must try card. As Danelius would say, it demands to be played, even if it doesn't pan out. But the vision is obvious here.
Like this to me is just kind of like this just reads as like fixed Bitter Blossom.
Yeah.
The other thing is like you can like you are losing life while making fairies just like with Bitter Blossom, but unlike with Bitter Blossom, if you end up in a situation where you're like, oh shit, my body engine is going to literally kill me, you always have the option to trade this off in combat. Or in the type of deck that wants a, black creature that's generating bodies, there's probably some way floating around in your deck to sacrifice it if it becomes a liability after it's made a couple bodies. Yeah, exactly. Desperate measures, feed it to Sephiroth,
Or
whatever.
Walk with it against an aggro deck, which Bitter Blossom's a liability sometimes against an aggro deck. You can't
100% it is. Yeah, I mean this spots you, unlike Bitter Blossom, this spots you the body instantaneously, and it does have flash. So I can imagine a game 1 scenario, black aggressive deck into, other aggressive deck. In some percentage of cases, it's just going to make sense for you to flash this in and trade it off for their, what's it called? The 3/1 flyer in white, Paolo's card.
Yeah.
There's going to be times where the fact that this is a body, it does make it more interactable, which I think from a gameplay pattern perspective is positive. And in addition to that, like you can utilize the body instantaneously and you can use it at flash speed. I expect this will be good. I don't know if I think that this is better as a baseline than like maybe even like something like Jadar is.
Yeah, is this actually, how many tokens do we need? We do make like 2 tokens off this, right? Because otherwise, isn't it just a worse version of that Lord of the Rings black-white card? It's like 2 mana, make 2 tokens with flying. And I know that's not really a fair comparison, but like this is kind of hard to cast, so like it's not trivial to cast it. You can't cast it off a splash. Like it's got to sit in play for probably 2 turns to really be worth the mana investment, right?
Yeah, I don't think you feel too bad if you get at least the first one, but yeah, it's at that point it's comparable to other things you could be playing, but there's a high enough threshold. I think this card should be played, and I mean just to swap over the image here real quick, like we had a Tonk method card here that was such an easy card.
I'm not sure I ever saw this card cast.
I see the dream. I see the vision with Timeline Color as a black aggressive card, but like again, as far as having to put in work to make your card good and having to have something else to make the card functional, and warp costing you 2 life every time, Timeline Color just wasn't it. I think it was worth the test, but we tested it and not going to stick around. And
I wanted to test it in place of Ghast, which is a classic. Yeah. We cut our fetch lands, which does make Ghast weaker. I do really love Bloodghast. I think it's a great card in general, but I think that Bitter Bloom Bearer is probably just going to be a better test for us. And like I have a hard time seeing this card like sucking, considering what our heavily black decks like to do. Obviously, I'm going to be jamming this and seeing exactly how good I think it is as quickly as possible.
Sure.
Yeah. We have room for like one double pip black card in the 2-drop section. We're not trying to overload on that. So that's why
Correct.
these cards kind of have gotten cycled around with each other.
Mhm.
All right, next up, Big Mama here. Moonshot. The art for this circulated early on in the life cycle of this set, and people were like losing their mind. They're like, "This is Shield? It's Shieldred. It's Shieldred." It's like, no, it's not Shieldred. It's actually just a one little 1 mana dude. Another mythic rare to me that does not read like a mythic, but whatever. Moon Shadow.
They're really hitting us with this mythic
Sweet
tax
art.
lately.
22 mythics in this set. Moon Shadow, a single black mana for a 7/7 menace. Ship it. It's good. Great card. This is
It's gonna be really funny when you pair this with that new Reese. And
That's the combo we're talking about.
Yeah, someone will do that.
I imagine by 2023, that's where the text will just end. It'll be 1 mana for a 7/7 menace. That's just gonna be, or 2030. I think I said 2023.
You did, yeah.
Okay, so the card it's 1 mana 7/7 menace, but comes in with 6 -1/-1 counter. So it starts as a 1/1 menace for 1. Whenever 1 or more permanent cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere while it has a -1/-1 counter on it, remove a -1/-1 counter from it. So notably, Chris, I'm glad you pointed this out. This does not count tokens hitting your graveyard because they're not cards, but it does count if you discard a permanent or if you mill a permanent. Yep. Only 1 per batch, so you can't like mill 10 cards and then make this a 7/7. But if a permanent hits your graveyard and it's not a token, you're going to grow this essentially. So it has an immediate comp to Stalactite Stalker from LCI as a 1 mana 1/1 that on end step can get bigger if a permanent went to your graveyard. But this works a little bit differently. You can remove multiple counters per turn. It doesn't have the activated ability to sack itself to kill something. It has a little bit of combo potential with Reese. So it's a different enough card while being in that same vein. This is another example of a card that we're not sure about, but we have an easy slot to cut with Forsaken Miner. I'll pull it up in a second. So we're going to test it out. But I mean, what do you think? What are you expecting out of this card if you put it in a deck?
I personally think that if you had to trigger this twice for it to be an okay value for mana, then I would say boo. I think that a 2/2, if you manage to trigger this one time, I think a 2/2 menace for 1 mana is a fine aggressive play. And if it gets any bigger than that, it's a great deal. This card does suffer from the fact, again, that we cut fetches, because fetches are an extremely controllable way for you to get your triggers on this. Yeah, I think like if it was like a 0/1 to start or whatever, like let's say it was like a 6/7 like capped out, then I wouldn't be interested in it at all. But I do think if you manage to trigger this one time, then I think it was probably decent value for money. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it other than that. Black has not an R cube necessarily, but historically, Black has a number of ways to discard its own shit. If you're running fetches, it's obviously good with those. Because it's whenever 1 or more. If you have sacrifice effects like instant speed, sacrifice effects that you can use at your discretion, it will trigger once for every real card that you sacrifice. Triggers off the bubble. I think it's going to be okay. I don't think it's obviously not going to be as good as it would be in a cube that has access to fetches, but I still think it's going to be fine. I don't think this is like a world beater, but I do think it's a cool design.
Yeah, this card's not very good, but I think it's also really good. So like what I mean by that, I think in our environment it's going to be really mediocre. I just don't think it's good. I think it's going to be a 1/1 menace a lot of the time and not do anything. But for example, in my like high power max fair cube, I have double fetches, and I think it's gonna be really good there. I think in constructed, it's gonna be really good where you can go like turn 1 Moon Shadow. I think I saw somebody say that you can turn to like Cathartic Reunion, discard, you get a trigger, You discarded a dredge creature, so now you replace the draws with dredge, and you dredge 3 times and put 3 dredge creatures into your hand, and you've triggered it like 5 times in 1 turn.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I think when you're doing that, in constructed, where you can build your deck around, just being like, all right, we're gonna like have a 4/4 or a 5/5 menace on turn 2. I think it's really good. But I think the lack of fetch lands in our environment means that this is going to be a 1/1 menace more often than you'd like, especially considering you can't trade tokens for it, which is usually the way you get around with these sort of effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to be another wait and see card.
Well, the funny thing, I think a really fun home for this is in like timeless cube style environments, because a lot of those play Dark Depths and Vampire Hexmage, and Vampire Hexmage always looks like such a dorky card because it can kill planeswalkers or whatever, but you really only have it in there as a 2-card combo with Dark Depths. But if you now put Moonshadow in, then it gives Vampire Hexmage like a new lease on life. It now has 2 different avenues, which is where, vintage cube style combos really excel, is when they can branch off into different paths. So I do like that Moonshadow gives Vampire Hexmage specifically like an alternative thing to do. It's not just like a dead card in floating around a cube if you didn't get Dark Depths or whatever. And we had Forsaken Miner as a card we knew for a while that we wanted to cut. So we've got the test in room here for Moonshadow. So easy one there.
I find it funny that Forsaken Miner is simultaneously really broken and really terrible.
Yeah, you gotta be doing combo stuff for this one. Red has 3 cards to talk about. Unfortunately, 2 of them are like quick hits and then we move on, but it does have one interesting card here in Hexing Squelcher, which has the CEDH community up in arms, like protesting or whatever. But somebody at Wizards really hates counter spells. Like last year alone, we got Voice of Victory and Surak Elusive Hunter as like counterspell hosers, and even like the Baloth, or the green Baloth that like we're not playing. There's other cards like that. Hexman Squelcher is more counterspell hosing.
I've always found it really weird that counterspell is the one avenue of interaction that Magic continues to be like, okay, yeah, you can have blanket protection from these effects. We don't really get hexproof anymore to blanket targeted removal. We get conditional hexproof, or we get ward. And I think, like, when you look at a card like Karavex Torch, which is a really old card that basically has ward 2 on the stack, I don't understand why this card couldn't have just said this spells you control have pay 2 life or counter the spell or something like that, instead of just a flat can't be countered. This might actually be the best card in the set. It just doesn't necessarily give me the best card in the set for fair stuff. For
cube, it's not.
Yeah, for cube cards, it's not necessarily. But I think it's probably probably is the best card in the set in a vacuum, though. Like if you just look at the power level of like when you go to the most powerful Magic environments, it's super strong.
We're coming up on what I think is actually the best card in cube, like universally, shortly. But just to read the card, 1 in a red for a 2/2 Goblin Sorcerer. This spell can't be countered. Spells you control can't be countered. It has ward, pay 2 life, and other creatures you control have ward, pay 2 life. I played against this yesterday in pre-release, and the thing that stands out to me where I don't think this is like an excellent cube card unless you're playing Force of Will, Force of Negation, stuff like that, is if you're not being highly proactive and your opponent is not forced to deal with you, then it doesn't have any text on it. Like it really punishes people who have to interact with you, and it's kind of a lightning rod where if you don't deal with this first, you're going to take a lot of damage trying to deal with everything else. So it's really good if you are pushing aggro like really heavily. But if your opponent's in any position where they're the aggressor or they just are not forced to interact with your creatures, it's just it all the text goes away. That's not always the case. Almost every match, you're going to have to interact with your opponent at some point and target their stuff. But yeah, it's this does not strike me as super powerful for cube. More of an annoyance, like a Eidolon of the Great Revel. It's also shockingly similar to my Scornful Striker from Avatar, the 2-mana 2/2 first strike that pinged your opponent for 2 whenever they cast a non-creature spell. It's going to play out like that card a lot, while also just randomly hosing counter spells. I really wish didn't they just do this with Spider Punk like 2 sets ago? Like this is just a power crept Spider Punk because it only Spider Punk stopped all spells from being countered, so it was kind of like a detriment in CEDH, whereas this is whatever. I don't think this card is actually like amazing in queue, but if you're applying pressure to your opponent and you have this down, I think they're going to feel it. And that leads me to believe like this is a good red aggressive card, but it's not a good Jundy card. I don't think it's particularly good like blue red spellsy style card. I think it's really just a red aggro. This is going to excel, probably not elsewhere.
Yeah. Interesting card.
I'm not crazy about it. I think it feels too targeted to me. And the fact that it's just a 2/2, to your point, if it's not being seriously disruptive in the way that it wants to be, then I'm not crazy about this one. We'll test it and see how it plays, but this is not my favorite include.
I think we're also, I did a count. I think we're up to like something like 12-ish creatures that are permanents that have ward. I think we could actually consider Nowhere to Run at this point. The enchantment that gives -3/-3 and ignores ward costs.
So procure.
Just something to something to consider. So yeah, get your Hexen Squelchers for $40 or whatever for CEDH or for constructed, but for cube, I don't think this card is like some sort of all-star banger.
Yeah. I do find it really interesting that the conversation around CEDH tends to devolve into either, CEDH is not a real format, or like they need to stop printing broken cards for CEDH, or it needs to have its own ban list or whatever. It feels weird given that it's just like if you care about winning and you're optimizing towards winning, eventually you just end up in CEDH. Like I get that Commander's a casual format and that's not necessarily the goal, but if you are someone who is constantly trying to make your deck better and more powerful, you eventually just end up there.
Tank. See, that's the benefit
Tank
of
making his podcast debut.
Hey, Tank! Look at that dog. Just like
that is a dog that is comfortable being manhandled.
Yep.
What a sweet baby.
Well, he's got a papa who's a heavy drinker, so he's used to getting picked up.
All right, now go back to your bowl and drink your Monster Energy.
Yeah, seriously. All right.
We cut Nia Sky Sail Storyteller, which is Gwen Stacy or Ghost Spider in paper. I just hate looking at these Omen Path. I'm not even convinced this card's very good because the like Ghost Spider part of it or whatever it's called on whatchamacallit just never comes up. And if you're not doing the back half of this, the Jeskai half, then it's just like a worse version of a lot of these other cantrip red creatures.
It's basically just like Split Skin Doll, right? I mean, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, and not even because if it dies, you don't even get your card, so you have to.
Right.
Yeah, you can run down turn 2, which is an upside, but yeah, you are right.
Like I think like Abbot of Carol Keep would be better than this card most times if you're not using the back. But
yeah,
I'm also there's a few of the Omen Path cards that I'm like, these cards are too good to not play, but if they're not impressive, the art is just. Get that out.
This probably has the least offensive art of the bunch, but
yeah,
a Demi is like kind of there. It's just like one of those ones that's like, man, this art looks horrible, but this card is a banger.
Yeah. We got 2 really quick hits here. So the first one is Boulder Dash, which is 1 in a red for a sorcery. It deals 2 damage to any target and 1 damage to any other target. This is a functional reprint of Arc Trail, which is not on the Arena client, so this effect is new to us, and I really love stuff like this. I always say we're not on a bunch of 1 toughness creatures, but then we go check and it's like there's actually enough 1 toughness creatures in our cube that this can 2 for 1, and I think that's something that our cube is severely lacking is ways to deal with multiple permanents at one time off of 1 card, like a 2-for-1 removal spell.
Is it like 6 mana or a sweeper or something?
Yeah, like your Casualties of Wars or whatever, because our cube is set up in such a way that if you stumble or if you get underneath somebody else, it is really hard to make a comeback because your opponent's going to be tit for tatting you with equally powerful cards. So Boulder Dash being able to snipe like Inti plus an X1 or something, or just cleanly take care of the first half of a Linger in Souls is something a lot of other red burn spells cannot currently do.
It is a little awkward that the most snowbally color in the cube is the one getting the card that helps you snowball / get out from under being snowballed on. But
whatever, man. Well, I think we would have been on Arc Trail already if we had Arc Trail. And we are cutting Flame Slash, which is not a indictment of Flame Slash. It's more that Flame Slash is secretly like a very absurdly powerful removal spell. To the point where like I think people are coming around on it with the arena powered cube. I think people recognize like, wait a second, Flame Slash actually really good. You know, it doesn't get talked about in the same conversations as like your Swords to Plowshares and such, but Flame Slash is like a premium red removal spell. It kills 4-drops. Like it's a 1-mana spell that kills 4-drops, no questions asked, and it's really good. So we're cutting it because we've kind of overloaded on cheap red removal, and we're cutting that back a little bit. We're also cutting Unholy Heat, which will, I guess I can just pull that one up right now. So not saying Unholy Heat and Flame Slash aren't excellent cards. We want to trim on red removal.
It's actually because they are excellent cards is the reason we're cutting them. They're a little too good at their job.
So the other card coming in for Unholy Heat is Seer, which it's on screen for people watching the YouTube. It's it's 1 in a red, 4 damage to a creature or planeswalker at instant speed.
This is one of those awkward moments of like, this is probably the most cubable card in the entire set, but like, whatever. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question, just to make it interesting, is where do we upgrade from here? You know, X number of years ago, we were on Thunder and Rebuke, which is this card at sorcery speed, or Lava Coil. We used to play Coil. And then they gave us Obliterating Bolt, which is sorcery, deal 4, exile. And then now we're in the Test in the Waters phase of the 4 damage, 2-mana spell, because we got Iroh's Demonstration, which is the one that can alternatively deal 1 to all your opponent's creatures. And now we've got this effect at instant speed, which I think is fairly new outside of Alchemy. So where do we go from here? Like, do we add Exile to this effect? Do we Lava Coil at instant speed? Is that the next iteration of the deal 4 for 2 mana?
Might be. I think WotC still hasn't. I don't know. We still get like deal 3s at common. Like I do legitimately think the deal 4 push to common might be the next step. It's just like creature sizing has gotten to the point that those deal 3s aren't exactly the great common removal spell they used to be. But it's kind of hard to say. Maybe we start adding some sort of tchotchke token or whatever onto it. We make a mutagen or a map or whatever when we kill something with excess damage. I can see something like that. Dude, this card, deal 4, if you deal excess damage, make a blood token would be sick.
Yeah, I mean, that card was a 5-mana sorcery in Crimson Vow.
Should we get for 2 mana? Please.
Yeah. So Seer and Boulder Dash are just 2 good red removal spells that we don't need to really go into too much more detail on. And we're cutting 1-mana spells because we can. This is my pick for best card in the set. And I mean that for Commander, and I mean that for Cube. I think this card is excellent. So
I'm surprised this one is not a mythic, actually.
I don't think they do the World Championship cards as mythics, which is weird. You probably should make those mythics, but Jean-Emmanuel Depraz here.
He coached on this one.
Yeah, so somebody went off on this one. So Formidable Speaker, the only green card that we're going to talk about is 2 and a green for a 2/4 Elf Druid. When it enters, you may discard a card. If you do, search your library for a creature, reveal it, and put it into your hand. That to me still blows my mind that there's no rider on that. It's just upgrade a card in your hand to the best creature in your deck, no questions asked, and it's on a 2/4 body for 3. And it also has 1 tap this to untap another target permanent.
Like we used to have to play Fauna Shaman for this effect. You had to discard you had to discard a creature and to have it survive to untap, and you had to pay mana, and it was a 2/2. This is just this is a good blocker. 2/4 still a relevant stat line against non-green decks for blocking.
This is a good body. I mean, they could have, again, going back to that Kithkin guy, they could have easily said, search for an elf, put it in your hand, and then we wouldn't be talking about it. But they made it generic. It works with any creature. There's no mana value restriction.
And this untap ability is crazy powerful too. It's not going to come up all the time, but when it does, and you untap a Sylvala, or you untap a Magus Lucia Kane, or do something silly like that, or just having the threat of being able to untap in Cube, the threat of being able to untap a blocker in the middle of combat with your defensive creature. I'm going to untap my 4/4 and block, or my 5/5 and block. This card is really pushed.
This card last night's sealed event solidified this card for me. And granted, it was 2-headed giant, so you're working with 12 packs or whatever. But we had 2 of these, plus High Perfect Morcant, plus the Sultai Elf Marilyn or whatever. And it's we had a bunch of on color great elf rares, but this card in particular, because we had it, just meant that we got to go see our key important card. Anytime I drew this, meant I was guaranteed to go get my bomb. And you can imagine that in a cube setting where it's like, anytime I have Formidable Speaker and I have anything in my hand worth discarding, I can go get the best creature in my deck or the best creature for the scenario. And I don't know, green black reanimator is not really a thing, but this can pitch your reanimator. I mean, yeah, that's the Fauna Shaman or Survival of the Fittest thing that you could always do, but this can pitch your reanimation target while going to pick up another reanimation target, or like a creature, like a Karmic Guide or something that reanimates for you. So they did not sacrifice stats on this. This could have been like a 2/3 and I wouldn't have batted an eyelash. This could have been a 2/2 and I still think it'd be playable.
Yeah. This feels like the kind of card that just for in paper, if this gets below like, $8, $9, $10, you just automatically pick up a copy. Like, just, this card's going to eventually be like a $15, $20 card. I mean, it's pre-releasing like $15, $20, but I assume that this is the kind of card that's probably going to be like stable $20 plus at some point. It's just, it just looks like the kind of card that will be in every EDH deck till the end of time type card. Every green deck at least.
Just good. Chris, you remember the days of Fauna Shaman?
I do remember the days of Fauna Shaman. It was never particularly good in our cube. Obviously, like you touched on this already, like where Fauna Shaman excels, at least in like more old school variants of really high powered environments, is chaining and combos and reanimator and shit like that. But I mean, this card feels out of step with the general power level of the rest of the set. It's just really strong.
Being able to get rid of a land when you're flooding is like,
it's crazy. Dang. I mean, it's also discard a card is just wild. And
if you're on them, and I'm not saying you will be, but this is a really good reason to include. This is probably more of a commander thing. This is a really good reason to include MDFC creatures in your deck, because then you can kind of side hustle this into a tutor for a land, right? I mean, Dryad Arbor also does the same thing, but what a card.
I mean, it's going to be a bummer if you are literally top decking on an empty hand and you draw it, but there's just so many ways to keep cards in your hand these days. I don't think that's going to come up all that often. And then, like, obviously in the late game, it could just go get whatever creature is going to win the game. But what I really like about it more than anything else is, like, any opening hand you have with like a dork and this,
just keep it
and lands, like, you are going to have a turn 4 play every time, like every single time.
And like a lot of times the ways you beat the green decks is you just like put pressure on them and hope that they don't have the 5, 6, 7 drop that really matters. And then now they just always have it if they have this card. It's just extra copies of like whatever their best card is. Now you can include like 1, 6, or 7 drop in your deck. I mean, 7 dropping cube is like exactly one card, and you usually don't play it in Titan of Industry. It's very good when you do. But like this lets you, in theory, could let you push down your curve even further and play like more mid-range creatures, and you just go tutor because you just have a second copy of every big creature in your deck.
And
and
there's so much going on with this card. If you're playing like Utopia Sprawl, this ramps.
Sure.
Like pay 1 mana, untap your Utopia Sprawl, make 2 mana. Actually, never mind. That doesn't accomplish anything, does it? That's just paying 2 mana to make 2 mana. That doesn't.
Well, this works. You tap for 2, you use 1 to
use the
tap.
Utopia Sprawl. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I was like,
you're right. You're cooking.
Okay.
This does combo-y shit if your cube supports that. Like,
it's good. Card's great. Read this. We're going on about it, but like, I don't think anybody is like, oh, what? Formidable Speaker was good. I missed that one. Like, no,
this is good enough for your cube.
I look forward to the I cast Green Sun Zenith for 3 to cast this so that I can then go tutor up my 5 drop for the next turn.
This to me is the most obvious best World Championship card since Elite Spellbinder. Like they've had some decent ones, but this is just very obviously like, this is an all-timer card. Like it just is.
Yeah. Wow.
All right, we have 5 multicolor cards to talk about here. They're kind of all over the place on the little architect here. One of them is kind of cheaty face, but the first card I played with this last night. By the way, it was fun. I flipped the back half and tapped it for 7 white mana, and that mattered.
Okay.
So story time real quick. Brigid Clashan's Heart, I don't know. It's 2 and a white for a 3/2 legendary Kithkin warrior. When it enters or transforms into this card, you make a 1/1 green and white Kithkin. At the beginning of your first main phase, you can pay green to transform it, and it becomes Brigid Down's Mind, which is still a 3/2, but it can tap for an amount of green mana or an amount of white mana equal to the number of creatures you control. And then the cool thing about that is even if you're not going crazy with the mana, is the following turn you can pay white mana to transform it back into the front half and then get another Kithkin. So this is mostly in the cube right now because it's 4 power and 3 toughness for 3 mana in a color that has really, really found a home in just putting bodies on the board and making those bodies bigger. You know, we have Suki, we have Lumen class frigate, we were on Cosmo Grand Zenith, we have the abandoned air temple. Like, so much of white right now is dedicated to get as many bodies as you can on the board and then anthem them, and it works. So you wet in announcements in that conversation as well. And it's working right now for white. It's really pulled white out of the depths from last year. And that means a boring card like this actually has a home because it gets there on stats. Now, the back half of it, we waffled a little bit about, like, how much is the mana production going to matter? Probably will matter some games, won't matter others. It's not really the huge selling point of the card, but it is there. And, you know, the reason we said it's cheaty face is because we're classifying it as a Selesnya card, but you'll play this in like a Boros deck. Like, it's not really a push into green white. It's more of just a mono white card that gives you an incentive to put green in your deck. So it's
and if you've been playing Magic long enough, you understand that Selesnya doesn't exist. So any card that allows you to play like Selesnya cards, adjacent cards, without playing actual Selesnya is nice.
Episode pitch. What does Selesnya need to do to be good? Like, what do Selesnya cards need to do to be good in Cube? Episode.
I don't personally. I mean, I think. I mean, they don't draft this anymore, but we have had drafters in the past that were routine Selesnya drafters, and I think Selesnya is fine. I think most people just don't play it because it's not, like, they don't find it to be exciting or
Bring back King Darien. King Darien's a good card, people.
The way that I see this card playing out, honestly, is I don't think in most cube decks in green white you're going to have enough repeatable card advantage that you're gonna want to be making a shitload of mana with this all the time. But if you just go like, let's say, and this is maybe a little pie in the sky, but if you go like 2-drop that makes 2 bodies, and then you play this and make 2 bodies. Let's just assume for a second you didn't have like a 1 mana creature play. Beginning of your next turn, you pay 1 mana to flip this. It taps for 4, and you get like a big shot. If you play this out on curve, you get like a big shot of additional mana for 1 turn to dump the rest of your hand. And then the following turn, you just flip it back to the original side and you make another token. And I think if you get that rotation out of this, and let's say like it ramps you for effectively after you've paid to transform it. If it ramps you for like, let's say 3 mana in the early stages of the game and really allows you to push ahead on tempo, and then you never transform it again, but you got a 3/2 and 2 1/1s out of the deal. I guess what I'm saying is, like, I see play patterns with this, especially if you curve into it in your opener, where this can just like overwhelm your opponent pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just play a 2-drop that doesn't make bodies and you just play this, right? When you flip it, it's mana neutral on its own and mana positive if you have any other creature. So, like, even if you just played this on 3, your opponent killed your 2-drop, right? You play this on 3, you flip it on 4. We've got, let's say, 3 mana left over. We cast Sanguine Evangelist, or, you know, we cast even just a regular 3-drop. We can still tap it for like 2 or 3 mana and cast another spell, which seems really good given that if it survives to the next untap, we get to flip it again to make another 1/1, which seems like a pretty good deal for 1 mana. So I've come up quite a bit on the mana production side of this card. I think the hardest part's going to be getting the green source into our deck. But once we've done that, I think the flip is actually pretty good. And obviously in Commander, this card could be insane. But in terms of cube, I just think this card's probably going to tap for, you know, 3+ mana pretty easily if you're able to flip it.
Yeah, and I think if you've got something to do with that mana, you really only need that one big shot of mana, basically like 1 time, I think, to like really get really get your advantage out of it.
Really good with
And
United
then
Front.
obviously, yeah, very good with United Front, and not to mention that if you have like a source
Another
of
anthem.
repeatable,
Yeah.
if you have another source of or like repeatable card advantage, or you're playing a lot of white creatures that like cantrip or whatever, I think that there's a lot of potential mileage here. So the card that we are replacing is Tristani Discordant. This card is ancient at this point. My understanding is that it's just not really up to snuff for 5 mana anymore, especially in a color combination that just doesn't see a lot of play. Tristani Discordant isn't like a card that people are like going out of their way to splash for in their Boros decks or their Abzan decks or whatever. So as much as I have a really strong nostalgic soft spot for Tristani, it's just not seeing play. So this is a fairly low cost swap in terms of trying something out.
And I maintain Tristani is a card that probably should be indexed more often, but like
same. But
people aren't Selesnya stands, so
No.
this is exactly proportional. Here comes Teld like, oh, this card's unplayable, blah blah blah. But it's
on to me, guys.
It's not unplayable.
I don't think it's necessarily unplayable, but 5 mana dog.
It's not amazing. Like
it's
we
5
all
mana
agree
for
it's
5/5 or for like 5 power. Like it is what it is. Like,
it's no King Darian, that's for sure.
We've just gotten so many good, cheaper anthems at this point, and
World's quickest story time. There's this card in Lorwyn, a common called Mist Meadow Council. It's 5 mana for a 4/3 that draws when it enters, and it costs 1 less to cast for each Kithkin you control. Last night I had a Kithkin sealed deck in my 1v1 pre-release, and on I think it was turn 5. Yeah, turn 5, I played Brigid for 3 mana, and I had enough Kithkins to follow up with 2 Mist Meadow Councils.
I think you cheated.
No,
No. Like, read the card. I think you cheated.
Why? What did I cheat at?
Doesn't it say if you control a Kithkin? Doesn't it only reduce the cost by 1?
I did cheat. Oh no, I cheated on live. I cheated on main. Oh man, you're absolutely right. I was 100% playing those as if they cost 1 less for each Kithkin.
Oh yeah, it's not Salt Red Pack Beast. Sorry.
Okay, well, I owe some people some apologies then. Sorry, folks. All right, never mind. Scrap story time. Moving on. Okay. I might not have.
On air. He announced this on air. I cheated.
Sure did. Sorry to Gamers Haunt in Asheville, North Carolina. I did you dirty. I do this sometimes, but had I called it, I wish somebody else had called that, so I didn't play like that the entire time. Okay, let's get through these elementals here and then get to some wrap up stuff. If you guys want to talk about the outsiders looking in, I might need y'all to handle that without me because I got to get going. But I do want to talk about these elementals. They're so sweet. So we're going to talk about 4 of them. We can throw in the 5th one in the conversation at the end, but the evoke elemental. So they're elemental incarnations. They all cost 5 or 6 mana. They all have dual hybrid costs, and they all have 2 different triggered abilities that trigger if you spent double pips of one of their colors on them. So, for example, Emptiness is 4 and Orzhov mana, so 6 mana total. It's a 3/5, and it has evoke for Orzhov. So you could pay white-black to evoke this, but then it doesn't do anything. So there's no real reason to do that. You want to either evoke it for white or black if you're going to evoke it at all. So it says when it enters, if white was spent to cast it, you return a creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. When it enters, if black was spent to cast it, you put 3 -1/-1 counters on up to 1 target creature. And the obvious thing here with all of these incarnations is if you cast it for its full cost and you spend white, black, you get the full body and both of those abilities. So these are very, very interesting to me because in order to use them for their buyout modes, you kind of have to play your mana imperfectly or have dual lands or whatever. Sometimes, you'll start off a white-black deck by going Plains Swamp, and then you can't get anything off of this. You have to go Plains or Swamp to evoke it. And then obviously once you get to 6 mana, you get this kind of big haymaker creature. That's how all of them work. But in order for these to be cubable cards, you do need to assume that you're going to evoke them some amount of the time. You just don't need a bunch of 5s and 6 drops in your cube, maybe with the exception of the Gruul one. But this one, I think, is one of the better ones. Both of these modes are really good. Like, if you have to fire this off as Damn to kill a creature, -3/-3 a creature, that's not bad. And if you cycle this essentially to get back like a 3-drop an Elite Spellbinder or something from your graveyard, that's pretty good too. So I like the buyout modes on this more than I like the buyout modes on some of the other cards. And then obviously you cast this for 6 mana. It's going to feel great. It's going to be a giant Chupacabra for a small, medium-sized creature while also giving you extra value, and it's going to feel really good. But the question is, like, it's a hybrid card. Do you see a world where you're playing this in like a Boros deck as a mono white card or a Rakdos deck as a mono black card? Or are you only putting this in a deck that can get white or black mana?
Yeah, this is the fakest hybrid I think I've ever seen. These cards are not hybrid. They are incredibly color intensive. They are XXYYs that you've got to be able to get. Like, I think this one, you want to have enough black sources that you can, like, evoke this on turn 3 or turn 2, even on some percentage of your games. Like, I don't really consider the white on as an evoke option for this one. Like, I mean, yeah, it'll come up from time to time, but when I'm putting this in my deck, if I'm trying to ever evoke it, I'm trying to do black to kill something. And then I want to have white by the time I get to 6 mana so that I can get the value play. But this one at least, or the maybe the green one's a little different, but like, or the green-red one, but this feels like incredibly fake hybrid mana.
Yeah, like Chris, would you put this in a Rakdos deck as a double black card?
No. I think for like pretty much every single one of these, I want to be able to get full value. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
For almost all of these, I agree with Teld. I don't think about these as hybrids. I think about these as I want to be able to use all parts of the Buffalo.
Buffalo cards, yeah.
Yeah. And if I can't, then I'm probably not interested. I mean, it would be maybe different if at their full cost, they were less expensive. But yeah, Emptiness, for example, if I can only produce white mana, I don't want a double white to reanimate something small ball tacked on to a 6-drop 3/5 that can reanimate something small ball. That's not, I don't think that's good enough.
I also want to make one small complaint about this cycle, and this is like kind of a minor thing, but they made the 3 that are not green 6-drops, and then made the green ones 5-drop. In the color that's going to have better fixing and ramp, they got the cheaper ones. What are we doing?
I don't know.
Maybe there was up until Badger Mole Cub and Ouroboroi, like the story was that green's terrible in standard, so maybe that's a concession to make green like really pushed or something, which they succeeded. But so a couple notes here: this whole cycle doesn't do the scam thing like the MH2 evoke or any evoke elemental, because you can't spend mana on them if you're just blinking them or whatever, or scamming them into play. So they kind of worded these to get around shenanigans. You could still like ephemerate this with the evoke on the stack to get a 3/5 body, but you're not getting any of the ETBs that way. And where these are really cool is with airbending, because if you have one of these on board and you airbend it away, you can then cast it for 2 mana and spend like black on that 2 mana to put the creature into play and get the black effect off of it. So we do play Appa right now. We do play the blue-white Ang as ways to airbend your own stuff, and I could totally see that coming up with some of these elementals. But they're really killing it, mostly with the like art and the kind of design in general, to the point where I want to play all of them except for maybe one. So Emptiness, I think Emptiness is actually even one of the better ones. We cut Zahir, Glory's Pass, which I think rock solid card, but Orzhov just has so much competition with, there's so many Orzhov cards we could be playing, especially 2-drops.
After we got this card, we also got Sephiroth and Umbral Caller Zealot as sack outlets, and like the big selling point when we got this card was it was a sack outlet that in a time when we didn't have any good ones.
Good card, but cuttable card, and that's exactly what we did. Which brings us to Vibrance, which is the red-green one. I'll see if I can find it here. There we go. So Vibrance is 3 Gruul, so 5 mana total for a 4/4. When this creature enters, if red was spent to cast it, it deals 3 damage to any target. And if green was spent to cast it, you search your library for a land card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle and gain 2 life. And, it has the Gruul evoke cost. So
what a good card.
This to me strikes me as the best one, just kind of like the generically best one. Again, the story of all these is I don't want to pay green and ditch this card to go get a land. But it's better that you can do that than not being able to do that. And red, if you have it and you need to ditch this to kill a creature, that's a nice little buyout mode. And this also has the same. It's actually very similar. It's going to come down and kill a medium-sized creature when you cast it full price. So and go get you a land. Getting a land off of your, it's not Vorinclex, but getting a land off of your kind of medium to expensive place still has value for you. It's not just dead, especially since this can get any land, not just like forests or anything.
Yeah, and I mean, I mentioned a minute ago about how the green ones being 5-drops was really, kind of nonsense, but also the green's going to be the color that has the best access to the colors to evoke these and to get full value off these cards consistently. So it does strike me that even if these cards were worse on the effects, which I'm not convinced that this is any worse than Emptiness in terms of effect, even if they were a little bit worse, they would still be awesome because they're more reliable.
This one I would play some amount of time in a mono or in a non-green red deck. Like if I didn't pick up Glorybringer and I wanted something to do at the high end, I could see playing this. Yeah. I don't think I'd play it in a. No way I'd play this in a green deck that doesn't have red though.
Yeah, medium Flametongue Kavu, worse Flametongue Kavu is still okay when you acknowledge that some percentage of the time you get a removal spell on it. I think you want to be casting all of these for their full cost, but this one is the least fake hybrid of the bunch.
Yeah. Good, just strikes me as and it's a good boy. It's no tank, but it's a good boy. We cut Xenagos here, which is a fine card. We actually recently brought Writhen Chrysalis into the mainline cube and
just play around it. Just play around it.
Just play around it. Yeah. Just counter it. What's the worst that's gonna happen?
Just counter it every time. Every time.
Writhen Chrysalis turns out good card.
Yeah, Xenagos is a fine card too. It's perfectly fine, but this is the gold section. The struggle with the gold section is the gold cards are good. So if you're adding a new gold card and you're cutting a gold card, you're probably cutting something that's good. So Xenagos, we played with Xenagos for a solid year here, and it was fine. It was perfectly fine. I have no qualms against it. It's a good card. Catharsis. This is the one that I've come up on since we've talked about it.
Okay, sell me on it.
So Catharsis, first off, it's 6 mana, 4 Boros for a 3/4 elemental incarnation. Evoke cost of Boros. When it enters, if white was spent to cast it, you get 2 1/1 green and white Kithkin soldiers, and if red was spent to cast it, you get all creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain haste until end of turn. First off, you guys know I'm a fan of Raise the Alarm style cards. The Resolute Reinforcements, whatever you want to call it. I think those are that is a style of card. 2 bodies in white for 2 mana is a style of card that has a home in high power level cubes, especially if you're doing Sacrifice Synergy, Go Wide Synergy, Anthem type stuff. I think it just fits, and those cards read like middle of the ground uncommon, so people end up just not putting it in the deck, and we end up not playing stuff like that. So first off, I like that this sneaks that style of effect into the cube, even if it's white to cast it. Second, the more I think about this, it's the red. What's that?
Is the 6 mana Imminent Recruit?
Well,
6 mana for the whole effect. I mean,
well, I don't think we noted this thing attacks for 8 power when it comes down. It's easy to say, the red effect is heroic reinforcements and that deals 4. No, this thing attacks for 8. This is a 6 mana 8 power point swing. +1 to all the other creatures that you already had in play. This is often going to be a 6-drop that attacks for 10 to 12 power. That's a lot of damage off the top. It reads like these effects read weak to me. You do not want to use the red effect unless it's going to win you the game. But as a 6-drop that can swing for 8 damage, 10 damage, name another card in our cube that comes down and adds 10 haste power to the board.
Right.
There isn't one. There's not one. And then also having the buyout of being a 2-drop that gets your curve started if you need it to be. I think this card is actually quite good. It sucks that effect is white, because that is going to hurt you some amount of the time in a Boros deck. And Boros isn't looking for 6 drops, but Boros is looking for 2 drops that can be 6 drops later in the game that attack for 10 damage out of nowhere. So I think this card is actually maybe the best of the cycle in the decks that want it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this card, like, I made the joke about Imitate's Recruiter, but it's kind of just that card at 6 mana, right? Like, it's an 8 for the whole thing. Like, if you think about what Imitate's Recruiter does.
Yeah. Imitate's Recruiter, I think, is probably a mainline cubable card.
Yeah.
It's just a powerful card.
Yeah, this might. My point is, this might be better. I'm not sold that 100% that it's better, but like having to pay 2 mana for the cheap buyout instead of 5 mana is pretty nice. Yeah, I don't 100% know that this card is incredible. I was pretty low on it at first because of the 6 mana mode, but yeah, like the white thing is like kind of on rate. That's not actually that far off rate for that effect. Like it's a little pip intensive, but that's about it. And you assume most of your
especially
are going to be base white.
Yeah, the way our white decks are playing too is like I could see playing this in a Selesnya deck. Obviously, I would really love to get some red sources in there so I could do the thing, but like we've said it multiple times just this episode, the white decks just want to get bodies on the board.
Yeah.
They just want to flood the board with bodies. It doesn't matter that they're Thraben Inspectors instead of Savannah Lines. It just wants a bunch of things on board to pick up the counters from United Front, or the boost from Suki, or the counters from Abandoned Air Temple, or the Anthem from Lumen Class Frigate. We're playing so many of those effects in white right now that, 2 mana for 2 bodies, regardless of the stats, I think is decent. We're on fucking Peter Parker right now, which I think the card is good enough that we can still play it, but man, I just wish we had I really wish we had a raise the alarms that got people excited. And this one has me excited. I really wish it was not white to get the 1/1s, but I don't also want a power crept raise the alarms as a mythic rare necessarily, but I'm excited about this card in case you can't tell.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also some sneaky lines with the red, and I don't know if this will ever come up, but FOMO is the card that sticks out to me. Is like we play a FOMO, we give it haste, and then we get 2 combat steps with increased stats or something. Those are probably lines that won't come up super often, but yeah, I mean, I think just the overall package here is pretty good. It's a lot of again, like having a pretty reasonable 2 mana buyout on this is nice. It remains to be seen. Like, I mean, some of our Boros decks are getting to the point where they're a little bigger, right? Like we mentioned, they're playing a little bit of the longer game, and like I said, 6 damage or 6 off the top. Even if you're in kind of a board stall, you play this card, you give it haste, you make some dudes. Like you ship with, if you got like 5-6 creatures in play, that's an extra 5 or 6 points. You're not talking about 8 damage now. You're talking about 14, 15, 16 damage.
Yeah, this hits for a lot if you have a board already, and like. It's not even a 6 drop for Boros. It's a 2 drop for Boros that has a massive 6 drop. Like the 6 drop is the buyout for Boros.
Yeah.
Buyout's not the right word, but the payoff, I guess. So yeah, I think this card is going to be very, very strong for Boros. Maybe a deck that doesn't need very, very strong cards at the moment. But
yeah, would this card be more well received if it was like a 2 mana white spell that had kicker red on it, or like red 2 or whatever?
It's the same. You can. It's the -1/-1 counter thing can be recontextualized the same way, or it's like, would people be higher on these -1 counter cards if they just started off small and gained +1/+1 counters? It'd be functionally the same, but it would read differently to people. Like, it would read as not downside, it would read as upside. So I don't know. It also kind of looks like a ball sack now that I'm kind of examining the art. We're gonna cut. This art looks so bad when you blow it up. Gloria, this is Aranya in paper. First off, I don't even think this card is that good. And second off, like, look at this. Look at it and tell me this is acceptable.
Are you ready for Ruin Pass Volume 2 in the summer when we get the Marble Heroes set?
No, because it's going to be 500 cards.
All right. So what's left? Wistfulness?
Wistfulness is the Simic one, which is...
Oh my god, this card is boring, but
good but boring.
Yeah.
Good but boring. This is the Simic one, 3 Simic, 6/5. When it enters, if green was spent to cast it, exile. Oh, it's exile. Exile an artifact or enchantment. If blue was spent to cast it, draw 2 cards and discard a card. So,
yep, that's a good card.
Good card. Nice card. Okay, you're putting this in mono green Would you put that irritates the
Yes.
crap out of me that mono blue would get a 6/5 for 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
That's
think I
I hate
care all
that.
that much about that, but like I mean, I
No,
might play
from a
it.
flavor perspective,
Yeah, I might.
should mono blue be getting 6/5s for 5?
Yeah,
But you would play this in mono blue, right?
probably.
This is one that you would play in monocolored decks.
I mean,
I don't
maybe.
know. I
I don't really
mean,
want a 5-mana sorcery speed Dirtler, but like maybe.
Yes, you do, Teld. Yes, you do.
And if I'm gonna put a 5-mana
now.
Dirtler in my deck, am I not gonna put Wong Shatong All Knowing and make some spirits?
Yeah, but you didn't get it because somebody else took it. This is your only option. This wheel.
I gotta play
you
Bad
get.
Quantum Riddler.
You know what's really cool with this is Great Divide Guide fixes all your mana and lets you like evoke these elementals.
Oh, that's pretty
however you
cool.
want.
That's pretty true. That's pretty cool.
I mean, I guess that's
Sure.
true of mana dorks in general, but
Yeah.
Great Divide Guide just does it blanket.
Right, so-
I think I'd probably start this one in mono green.
Yeah, I played as a
Mono green
card.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this card is like. I mean, this is like might be just the most generically like this is an obviously good card of the bunch, right? Like it doesn't do anything flashy or powerful. It's like the most boring card I've ever seen wasted a mythic slot on, but also it's like super playable. So
Teld, we're cutting this card because it does not spark joy with the community and that art, though. Where'd it go? I need to do some more organization on this. Did I hear that you got to do the thing with this the other day?
Yeah, I got to do the thing.
Well,
I used it off a blood token and mayhemed it out so that I could kill a planeswalker. It was actually really cool. Like I got to do the thing and it felt powerful. Like it did. Then next turn I played a 3-drop, moved it over, gave it haste, hit him in the air for 5. It was great. That being said, the amount of hoops you have to jump through to actually get this card to work are not exactly awesome. It feels like it wanted to be. Like the deck I was playing felt like the kind of home for this deck, which was like a red-black shell, like an aggressive shell. The problem there is that there's only a handful. There's like Tursa and there's Inti and a couple of other cards. But in addition to having to have the discard outlet, you also have to have the mana to cast it. So like I get that this one is a hoop to jump through. It doesn't generate value. It's pure pressure. But I got to do the thing, and it was cool. I don't think it's. I still think there's something here. I still think it's a cool card that has some potential if the discard stuff keeps getting pushed in red and black. But yeah, it's a card that's just hard to make work, and your payoff to take advantage of it, you need to have creatures in bold play. You need to be playing creatures and attacking with them. So.
And for the listener, we're talking about Stitcher's Wings on Arena. This is the Mayhem equipment that auto attaches, gives +2/+0, flying in haste, or what is it, rocket powered buggy bumper in paper or something like that. Rocket powered goblin glider, I want to say is the name of the card. So yeah, there's some hideous art there. That's okay. So that's it for definite cards that made it in.
Speed run time.
Yeah, speed run time on some things that didn't make it in that are worth mentioning real quick. So first off, let me start with the other Evoke Elemental since those are fresh in the mind. Deceit is the Dimir one. It's a 5/5 for 6, and it bounces a non-land permanent for blue, and it thought seizes your opponent for black. And I think the reason we passed on this one over the other ones is that you're not happy to use either of these evoke modes on this card. Like blue to bounce something is a buyout, but it's not a good one, and black the thought seize is not good, especially being double pipped. Like those are just not good buyouts. And the end result being like 6 mana Ravenous Chupacabra when we poo-pooed Ko the Face Stealer last set is just not really doing it.
Yeah,
I think
they could have made this card better by giving it
flash
flash and making it be able to target spells or permanents, and then your blue could target a spell.
Eat their draw step and bounce. Yeah, that'd be brutal. So Deceit didn't make the cut. Let's see. Flitterwing Nuisance is an interesting one. I'm sorry for the people watching me give them motion sickness. Flitterwing Nuisance is a flying man, a 1-mana 1/1 flyer, or 2/2 flyer that comes in with a -1 counter, and you can pay 2 and a blue to remove a counter from it, and then you get the Coastal Piracy effect. Whenever a creature deals damage to a player or planeswalker this turn, you draw a card. And
good commander card.
If it's that same bill as the Lockmare, where it's like there's a dream here, it seems decent, but it requires you to actually put in a decent amount of work to be anything at all, and I'm not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze on that one.
Yeah, it's just 2 face up. It's 2 mana committal. I think if this were like, obviously if it were like 2 mana, then you could have the lines of where we play this turn 1, turn 2, we like pump it and we hit and we draw a card, and that would that be too good? I don't think that'd be too good, but like maybe it would be.
I want to like this card, but I don't think it's there for 3 mana to get it up to any reasonable amount of stats. That's a card that definitely could have used like Ward 1. Just slap Ward 1 on it or something. Mutable Explorer, the 2 and a green 1/1 changeling that makes a Mutavault token when it enters the battlefield. This strikes me as good, but
This is just an alchemy card.
It is just, they did this a lot in this set. They're just doing perpetual stuff in paper.
Conjure a Mutavault into play.
I don't think this is better necessarily than like Summon Fenrir as far as a 3-drop ramp creature goes. And B,
no, you compare this
green.
To Summon Fenrir, dude. Don't compare this.
Does green has green ever wanted a Mutavault? Like I don't know.
Probably not. Summon Fenrir is an absolute banger. This card is not. I like the design. It's cool. I think it'll. This is like another one of those. Like obviously, it's a good commander card for your your tribal style decks. But I just don't care. Don't care.
Yeah. Still speed running here. Stop me if anybody has anything to say about these cards. Abigail, I got to play with this last night. It was a beating. I got to jump one of my cheated 4/3s in the air. I feel so bad about that. Abigail is Orzhov for a 1/1 flying first strike lifelink, which we've seen the power of flying lifelink on a 1/1 with Deep Cavern Bat. Granted, that does something else, but when it enters, up to one other target creature perpetually loses all abilities. Not perpetual, but it is permanent effect. Put a flying counter, first strike counter, and lifelink counter on that creature. This, I think, is a really cool card that pushes a lot of damage, but ultimately probably has to use an Orzhov slot and just doesn't do what black-white decks are really looking to do. I almost wish this was like 1 and a white for just an aggro white creature, and then I'd probably be on board with it, but as a white card or as an Orzhov card, I just don't think we can find a cut for this. But I do think it is a pretty powerful card if you've got, I mean, even just jumping a 2/2 in the air that's no longer relevant on the ground and making it a 2/2 flying first strike or lifelinker is pretty good.
Losing all abilities is just downside so often, though.
It probably is, yeah. For many creatures. You can use it on opponents' creatures as well, but you don't really want to give them a
flying first striking lifelinker. Yeah.
Teld, did you want to mention Shadow Urchin? We ended up not finding a cut for it, but you had brought it up originally.
Yeah, so Shadow Urchin is 2 and a hybrid Rakdos for a 3/4 oof. And when it attacks, you blight 1, so you have to put a -1 counter on a creature you control. And then whenever a creature you control with 1 or more counters on it dies, you exile that many cards from the top of your library, and until you're at next end step, you can play those cards. So I just kind of like this as this is actually a hybrid card, right? It does have play it could see in red or black decks. It synergizes with some cards like Bloodsoaked Champion. You can like kind of view it as a sack outlet in that regard. And if you use it on bigger creatures and you kill them, you could potentially, exile 2 or 3 cards to draw. So it's kind of in that vein of like when this card attacks, sacrifice a creature, draw a card. And I don't think it quite gets there because it's not a May ability on the Blight, so you don't really get to take advantage of the sizing perhaps as often as you like. There's just too much downside there. But it is an actual hybrid card and it has an interesting, potentially powerful effect. So it was just something we talked about.
I could see wanting to test this. I think we talked about it, but like we're getting to the end of a conversation and had to like wrap up and didn't really actually chat about it.
I think they could have made that a 4/4 and I would have been obviously more interested in it. But like I just think that card, given that it blights the way the blight works, probably could have made it a 4/4.
Yeah. Tam, Mindful First Year, which by the way is apparently Jason Vraska's like alternate dimension daughter. You can't tell from the art, but this is a Gorgon wizard. In case so this you didn't realize
Vraska
that.
Jason's love child.
There's pre-spoilers. I know nobody here cares. If you care about Strixhaven spoilers from the next set, there's like an evil stop the video now, go to this timestamp or whatever. There's evil Jace in an alternate dimension Strixhaven or something, and this is his alternate dimension daughter with Vraska. Hence why this is a Gorgon without looking like a Gorgon at all.
Is Loot jealous?
I think Loot is actually just Fibblethip in the alternate. Is Fleam. He's Fleam. So this is 1 in a Simic mana for a 2/2 legendary Gorgon wizard.
Just give her
Each other Yeah, it's Giver of Runes. Each other creature you control has hexproof from each of its colors, and it can tap to give target creature you control all colors until end of turn, which is obviously a vivid enabler for the set. It gives you max vivid automatically. This is just annoying. Like, first off, it can target itself. Oh, it doesn't give itself hexproof, but it can target itself. But basically, this is it makes it impossible for your opponent to single target anything. It's not protection. It doesn't do the combat trick, but if your opponent targets anything else other than this with removal, you just give it hexproof from all colors until end of turn. So this is like a cubable card. I would expect to see in other people's cubes, but it just seems like the obnoxious kind of stuff that we don't really care about, and also like not really Simic-y for our purposes.
Yeah,
You know,
feels like it's closer to like it would seem more play potentially in blue. Though I mean, I guess giving your other green creatures like protect or hexproof is actually really powerful though, because usually you use your Doom Blades on the big green creatures. Now you have to use a much small green creatures.
yeah. I don't think we talked about Sandstorm Salvager actually when we mentioned cutting for or bringing in formidable speaker, but Sandstorm Salvager was the cut for that. Sorry, people.
Yeah, seen some cool things from it lately, but just doesn't quite do enough.
Devoted Druid, special guests, good mana dork. Even better if you can use -1 counters in a positive way. But for us, if we play this, what we're saying is we want people to be able to play a 5-drop on turn 3, and that's not really something we want to encourage. Like if that incidentally happens by having a mana dork into double mana dork play, like so be it. But a single card putting a 5-drop into play on turn 3 is something we would rather reserve for higher power cubes, not for our environment. So we're not going to play Devoted Druid. And Manamorphose is very similar as a special guest card that like some cubes will want. There's reasons to play Manamorphose, but doesn't seem like a good fit for us necessarily. So two special guests worth shouting out, and then Teld. I'm going to look up this one on Scryfall. Twilight Diviners, the last card here that
this I just wanted to mention as a really cool commander card. I don't think this is a cubable card, but basically it's a 3-mana 3/3 ETBs to Surveil 2. And then whenever another creature enters, if it was entered or cast out of your graveyard, you make a token copy of it once per turn. And I've been testing this on like deck testing it for my Reanimator deck, and just doubling up some of your plays is really powerful. I think there's a lot to do here with like a card that kind of enables your graveyard strategies while also being like a must answer kind of force amplifier. I usually don't like these force amplifier effects, but when they sort of have reasonable stat lines and are contributing towards the gameplay in themselves in the form of Surveil, which is really powerful for these graveyard decks, I think this one probably gets over the hurdle of being playable just off of utility.
Yeah, this is a really cool card that's just not maximized in the set. I think even in retail limited, there's like 2 ways to trigger it, and it's a cool design. Like reanimation doubler is a cool concept for a card, especially when it surveils too. So nice shout there, and that's going to bring us to a close. I know the speed round there at the end, but I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about cards that we ended up not playing, because that's not really the purpose of the ins and outs here in the first place. But just to kind of like wrap us up here, any like big overarching thoughts about Lorwyn? It's I wouldn't quite call it a miss. I don't think it's fair to call this set a miss because it's just focused on parasitic archetypes, like, and they're not designing for cubes, so I don't really hold them at fault for not making a ton of excellent cube cards. But I feel like we got at least one good banger for each color and a couple cool multicolor cards. So I could ask for more, but I think I'm content with what we got.
Yeah, I mean, we've got what looks to be at least 1 or 2 forever cards, probably just one in the form of the Formidable Speaker, and a couple of interesting cards to test out. So, yeah, I mean, like, honestly, given the power level of our cube and the fact that they seem to be trying to pull back power level on some of these sets recently, it might be that, we shouldn't expect to get a ton of cards every set. I sort of expect that'll immediately be undone with the Marvel superhero and reality fracture. I expect, for whatever reason, I just don't think they'll be able to contain themselves with the Marvel superhero set. I think they'll just be like, all right, here's Iron Man. He does 15 different things or whatever.
Yeah. Chris, so we gonna get you back in the saddle. We need a banger of a set to get Chris back in the saddle. That's what we need, and I don't think Lorwyn's that set. I
Return
don't
to
know
Thunder
what.
Junction, RTJ.
And Strixhaven ain't gonna do it. What Rome? I just called you Rome. I'm sorry. Chris, what setting do we need to go back to
What
get you like hype, like
giving
reinvigorate
you?
the magic hype?
I don't. I think I just need to start playing again. I think I just need to start playing again, which I plan to do.
I feel like you've been saying that. I
On
feel
it,
like you've been saying that for the last year.
I have. What I will say is, and they probably will just they'll probably find a way to disappoint. But if they can pull off giving Green Black an interesting identity in Strixhaven 2 Electric Boogaloo, that'll probably go a certain distance to getting that done.
I hope so. I mean, they've got to overtune, right? They know Witherbloom and Warhold sucked, right? So I would hope they adjust it and try to make up for the last set and we get some
I hope so
interesting
too.
green black stuff. But
I mean, it's literally been probably what, like 4 years and change since Strixhaven came out, and my big takeaway from that set at the time was that I thought they had a lot of really interesting ideas on some of the green black cards, but the designs were too scattershot and they were a little too conservative. So we'll have to see what they do.
we got to get through TMNT first. So
Oh my god.
okay, that's gonna go ahead and do it. Yeah. Opinions on TMNT, Teld? Do you want to save that for March, or you want to go off now?
I mean, the stuff that I saw that you said was basically the entire set. There were like 2 cubable cards.
Oh man, they
looked awful. Set looked terrible. The art looked terrible. The designs looked terrible. Like looked rough.
It looked not great. Yeah, Chris, I don't know if you probably missed this, but a vast majority of the rares from TMNT started showing up in people's Lorwyn Eclipsed pre-release kits. So like
they do that on purpose, or was it just a print fuck up?
They came on Twitter and said this was unintentional, but it felt intentional. Like every set in the rare ended up in almost every set in the rare ended up in a pre-release kit somewhere. Like how do you even do that? You just misclick the set? Like how does that work at the printers?
If this were a normal functioning company, I would say I believe it's intentional, but I can totally buy that WotC just did not intend to do this. This was an accident. Oopsie poopsie. We pressed the wrong button.
Yeah. Well, they're no, not actually dumb, but they're dumb because even if this was an accident, they could have totally taken credit for this and been like, "Yeah, we did that on purpose," I guess.
Or at least be kind of nebulous about it. That's internal WotC information.
That's really bad for content creators, though, to have all these rares leaked.
The fact that most of them look terrible too, you're like they look awful.
They suck. Yeah, you ready for that? Yeah, it looks. But it's like dinosaur lizard or something.
I know. I don't want them to print another good Universes Beyond card ever again.
There's a card called Chrome Dome. Apparently, that's a TMNT card. There's a class enchantment called Does Machines.
Chrome Dome? Is that when you get head from a robot? I don't.
Not with the video cameras on. All right, that's gonna be a cap on Lorwyn Eclipse though, and again, let us know. This is only our second time doing it. Let us know if you like this ins and outs style review over just like us talking about every card in the set we think is interesting.
We still managed to get
a shower before we do the next one.
Yeah, we heard feedback last time that people did like hearing about the cards that we were actually removing to get a little bit more time in. With us doing set reviews so often now, we don't get as much time to do the like single card discussion. So it is nice to talk about a little bit of what's happening with the cube, not just the new stuff. So let us know, if you like this, if you prefer one method over the other, or a hybrid of it is some feedback that I got. But that's gonna go and do it for Lorwyn Eclipsed, and we'll keep tinkering with this camera setup. We've got a plan to get some tier lists out this early this year. We'll hopefully get a couple just strategy episodes in before TMNT hits in March. And thanks as always to the listener for hanging out, and hope you like seeing us here. Thanks to everybody out there. Happy pre-release, happy Lorwyn Day, and we'll see y'all next time.
All right, be good, kids.
Quick sign off before we just like 2 minutes. I want to get your guys' opinion on something. We played Two-Headed Giant last night. As you know, in Two-Headed Giant, when the timer is called, you go to turns, and there's 3 turns left in Two-Headed Giant. So it goes turn 0, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and then if there's not a winner, it's considered a draw. And draws are normally not beneficial because a lot of stores don't pay out a prize pack for a draw, but the store that we were at does pay a prize pack for a draw. So me and my partner are getting just completely wrecked for a whole game, but we've stabilized and we managed to draw out the game to turns. We have no way of really winning the game by the time turns is over, but we are able to stall the game until the end of the timer to reach a draw, which basically guarantees us an extra pack of prize support and guarantees the other team a pack of prize support. If it's a draw as opposed to like a concession or whatever. Now, our opponents, it starts on turn 0 for us, goes to them on turn 1. They miss lethal that turn. They had lethal on board. They just failed to attack with 1 extra creature and missed it. It goes back to us for turn 2. It goes back to them for turn 3, and they miss lethal again. They miss lethal twice in a row, and it's on board lethal. They just don't attack with everything, and that's all they need to do to win. And then they didn't kill us, and the game ends in a draw, right? And of course, they're winning. They're going to win the game if the game continues. So they're like, do you want to concede? And me and my partner are like, well, a draw is beneficial for us because we get a pack, right? And I said it to the opponent. I said, you failed you missed lethal twice. You failed to kill us. Like, you had the opportunity to kill us to win the game, and you didn't do it. And he got really pissed. He was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, we won the game. I was like, no, you didn't win the game. The game is a draw right now based on the rules of the game. So his partner was really cool about it. He de-escalated. He's like, look, guys, we're going to win this game if it goes on. Would you like to concede? And I talked to my partner, and we ultimately said, no, we don't want to concede what's ended in a draw. Everybody gets a pack for this match. It's a fucking pre-release, whatever.
What's the advantage for them if you concede there?
They get an extra pack for having won the match instead of it being a draw. So it is beneficial for them to, and to be fair, we were dead on board if the game continued. Like, they were going to win, but my argument was take the draw because A, that's the rules. B, you're getting snippy with me about it, and C, you failed to find, you had 2 opportunities to actually win the game and you failed to do it. And I pointed out, like, you had lethal here and you had lethal here, and that the guy just did not, and that was the ultimate decision. The guy did not like hearing that and started getting like cussing and getting upset, and me and my partner were like, okay, it's a draw then. Like, we could have conceded, but that sealed it for us. Like,
first of all, there's no real stakes. I mean, it's like a pack or whatever, but
it's a prize pack, like, whatever. Like,
my thing there too is, like, what would you do if we were in your shoes or you were in our shoes or whatever? Like, what you would not be conceding here either. Like, if you, especially.
Well, that's what my partner said. He's like, why don't you concede to us? You have 1 card left in your library. We have top decks, and that actually wasn't true, but we were dead if we passed the turn back. But yeah, I guess that was my question: is what would you do in that situation? Would you concede if you knew for a fact you were going to die the following turn if the game continued, or would you take the draw because of the attitude and the missed lethal?
I think there are times in, like, tournament settings where, you recognize that a draw isn't beneficial for necessarily, like, maybe you're not gonna make top cut or something like that, and like you concede your opponent so that they have a shot at getting a top cut, like stuff like that. But like, when you're talking about, first of all, prize packs that, there's no real stakes. There's not like any box if you win or whatever. And secondly, the big one for me is the impoliteness of it. If my opponent's gonna be a jerk to me, it's like, all right, well, I might, if you just been like real cool about it, maybe, but like, definitely not now that you're gonna be a jerk about it.
He was like, well, we won the game. I was like, no, you missed lethal twice. And he's like, oh, is that my fault? And I was like, yes. What?
Yes, it quite literally is.
I'm thankful for his partner though, because his partner was very cool about. You could tell his partner was disappointed we wouldn't concede, but he also de-escalated his partner. So I appreciate.
I'll admit I'm a bit of a jerk about that sort of thing sometimes. Like when I'm when I'm playing Commander, if somebody gets real snippy, starts being a baby about something, oh, you board wiped me or whatever. It's like, all right, well, I'm just gonna like you're my target. I'm bullying you for the rest of the game if I have an opportunity to.
The arena thing where like I don't good game people, but if someone good games me and then I beat them, I'm spamming good game that game. Like I just wanted to share that because I had a great time at that pre-release, but that one moment really soured things, and I think it's fair to take the consent. You're not obligated to do anything. You can concede if you want. You can take a draw if you want, and normally I will concede if I know for a fact I'm going to lose if the game continues. But if you're talking about a prize support and you're going to get an attitude, I'm just like, whatever. Like, it's a draw. That's how the game ended. That's the rules. It's a draw.